It was supposed to be a quick detour, just a brief stopover at the mountain lodge marked on the map as Everpine Hotel. Anna and Ben, longtime friends and sporadic road trippers, had planned the trip to escape their city routine. Both in their mid-20s and eager to shake off some recent life troubles, they saw the trip as a chance to unwind. They hadn't expected the storm, nor the way the mountains seemed to swallow the sky in oppressive darkness. When their cars sputtered and died on a desolate road, they exchanged glances, both aware that cell reception had faded hours ago. Through the rain, they spotted a dimly lit sign just visible through the tree line. It read "Nowhere Hotel" in flickering red letters, as if challenging them to question their luck. They had no choice but to trudge through the mud toward it, pulling their bags behind them. The trees seemed to lean in, as if forming a tunnel, guiding them toward the only visible structure in miles. The hotel loomed ahead, far larger than they'd anticipated. With its sprawling, multi-level architecture, it seemed to reach into the fog and disappear. Its facade was a strange blend of Victorian grandeur and neglected decay, with ivy creeping up stone walls and shattered windows patched with cardboard. Inside, the air felt thick with stale perfume and age. The reception desk was unmanned, but a small brass bell sat on the counter. Anna rang it, wincing as its shrill sound echoed throughout the empty lobby. A minute passed, then another, before an elderly man shuffled out from a back room. He wore a maroon suit, moth-eaten at the cuffs, and his pale face was expressionless as he regarded them. Checking in, he asked in a voice so monotone it almost sounded automated. After the briefest exchange, he handed them a single brass key with an old-fashioned tag that read Room 13. When Anna hesitated, asking if there were any other available rooms, the man shook his head slowly, eyes unblinking. "All other rooms are taken," he said, his lips forming an almost imperceptible smile. Unease rippled through Anna, but she shrugged it off, thinking of how tired they were and how little sense it made to question an old man in a nearly abandoned hotel. The hallway leading to Room 13 was dim, its flickering sconces casting distorted shadows that danced along the peeling wallpaper. Every footstep they took seemed amplified, echoing in a way that made the corridor feel like a cavern. As they passed other doors, they noticed strange carvings scratched into the wood, symbols they didn't recognize, and some that seemed like names but were too faded to read. Finally, they reached Room 13. The door was a deep mahogany with a brass knocker shaped like a grotesque face, its mouth twisted in a silent scream. Inside, the room was unexpectedly luxurious, albeit in an unsettling way. Velvet curtains draped from ceiling to floor, blocking out all signs of the storm outside. The bed, a grand four-poster with thick crimson sheets, looked inviting, yet something about the room felt wrong. It was too still, too preserved, like a stage set that hadn't been touched in years. A single window lay hidden behind the curtains, but when Anna pulled them aside, she found only darkness beyond, a darkness so complete that it seemed almost unnatural. As they settled in, Ben cracked a joke about haunted hotels, which made Anna laugh, but only briefly. When she looked away from him, she thought she saw something flash in the mirror opposite the bed, a dark shape just behind her. She whipped her head around, but the room was empty, save for them. Brushing it off as nerves, she ignored the sense of something heavy and unseen pressing down on her. It was around midnight when the first strange sound echoed from the hallway. Anna and Ben were just beginning to fall asleep when they heard it, a faint shuffling, then what sounded like distant whispering. They waited, expecting it to fade, but instead, the sound grew louder, closer, as though someone were standing right outside their door. Anna held her breath, listening as the whispering continued, now distinctly a voice, soft, muttering, like someone reciting lines in an unfamiliar language. Ben, braver or more foolish, went to check the peephole. "There's no one there," he whispered, but he stayed close to the door, listening intently. Then, just as suddenly as the sounds had started, they stopped. Silence swallowed the hotel once more, thick and oppressive, leaving an uneasy tension in the air. They returned to bed, both feeling strangely awake despite their exhaustion. But just as they settled, the whispers began again, and this time, the voice seemed to come from within the walls. The morning arrived sluggishly at the Nowhere Hotel, as if the sun had reluctantly climbed over the mountains and could barely illuminate the thick fog. Anna and Ben woke to the dim, sickly light creeping through the edges of the window, casting an eerie glow over the crimson sheets. They hadn't spoken much after the whispering ceased, both haunted by the unnerving feeling that something, or someone, had been listening to them from just beyond the walls. Neither wanted to mention the whispers in the dead silence of the morning, so they busied themselves unpacking, hoping that the daylight would bring some clarity to their unsettling surroundings. As they gathered their belongings, Anna noticed something peculiar. She brought a bright red scarf, one she always traveled with, but now it lay twisted on the floor near the door, as though someone had stepped on it, leaving a faint mud stain. She picked it up, her brows furrowed, trying to remember if she'd dropped it there the night before. It felt cold, colder than anything in the room should be, as if it had been touched by something frigid. She glanced at Ben, debating whether to mention it. But before she could, there was a knock at the door, a slow, deliberate knock that sent a shiver up her spine. Ben opened the door to find a young woman standing in the hallway, dressed in the same maroon uniform as the old man at the front desk. She held a tray with a silver pot and 2 porcelain teacups, but her expression was hollow, her eyes dull and unfocused. Without waiting for permission, she stepped into the room, placed the tray on the dresser, and muttered compliments of the hotel. Her voice was low and mechanical, lacking any trace of warmth or sincerity. Then, as abruptly as she had entered, she turned and left, her footsteps fading down the hallway. The scent of the tea wafted through the room, bitter and herbal, with a metallic undertone that made Anna wrinkle her nose. She picked up one of the cups, examining the dark liquid swirling inside. "This place is weird, Ben," she murmured, setting the cup down. Ben chuckled, trying to lighten the mood, but his laugh sounded strained. "We'll leave tonight," he said, almost as if he were reassuring himself. But as they sipped the tea, they both noticed something odd. The room felt slightly colder, and the dim light through the window seemed to flicker, casting strange shadows that seemed to move on their own. After a few minutes, Ben decided to go down to the lobby to inquire about transportation, hoping that perhaps the old man could direct them to someone in town who could help with their car. He promised to be back soon, leaving Anna alone in the room. She tried to busy herself, scrolling through photos on her phone, but found no signal to send any messages. In the silence, she became hyper-aware of every creak, every distant footstep, each faint echo that traveled down the endless hallways. She could hear what sounded like faint murmuring, and although she couldn't make out the words, the rhythm of the whispers was familiar. It was the same haunting cadence from the night before. After a while, Anna stood and crossed the room, intending to pull back the curtains and let in more light. But when she did, the view from the window made her freeze. She'd expected to see the gray fog and dense trees they had passed the night before, but instead, she was looking at an expanse of rooms, like hundreds of tiny replicas of their own, stacked on top of one another in a dizzying maze of identical layouts. She stepped back, her heart pounding, convinced her mind was playing tricks on her. She shut the curtains quickly, breathing heavily as she struggled to shake the image from her mind. Moments later, she heard a strange noise coming from the bathroom. It was a dripping sound, slow and methodical, each drop seeming to echo louder than the last. Reluctantly, she pushed open the bathroom door, half expecting to find the sink leaking. Instead, she found a single wet footprint on the bathroom tiles. She stared at it, horrified, as it wasn't hers or Ben's. The footprint was large, with toes splayed out, as though someone had stood barefoot in a puddle. The rest of the bathroom was dry, yet the print glistened with fresh moisture, as if someone had just left. Just as she was about to bolt from the bathroom, the door to the room swung open, and Ben stepped back in. He looked pale, his eyes wide, and Anna knew something had unnerved him as well. "What happened?" she asked, but he shook his head. "There's no one at the front desk. It's empty, completely deserted," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I tried to go outside, but but the lobby doors wouldn't open. It's like they're locked from the outside. The words hung heavy between them, and Anna felt a chill settle over her as the reality of their situation sank in. As they debated their next steps, Ben walked over to the closet, intending to grab his jacket. When he opened it, though, he stopped cold. Inside, hanging from the closet rod, was a suit identical to the one worn by the old man at the front desk, maroon with frayed cuffs. It hadn't been there before, they were certain of it. But what was more unsettling was that a small, worn name tag was pinned to it. Mr. Algernon. It read, the name barely legible beneath a smear of something dark. Anna took a step back, every nerve in her body screaming to flee. But where would they go? They were trapped in an isolated hotel, miles from any known road, with no one else around, or so they thought. The suit seemed to mock them, as if it held some silent, dark joke that only the walls knew. Their unease grew as they tried to rationalize what they were experiencing. It couldn't be real, they thought, but the evidence before them suggested otherwise. Desperate to escape the oppressive atmosphere of room 13, they decided to explore the hotel, hoping to find another guest or perhaps an exit they hadn't noticed. But as they stepped into the hallway, they noticed something strange. The walls seemed to stretch longer than before, the doors appearing further apart, the hallways twisting and curving in unnatural angles. They walked for what felt like hours, only to find themselves standing outside their own room, staring at the brass plate that read 13 in tarnished, ominous script. Neither could explain how they had ended up back at their room, nor could they shake the feeling that the hotel was somehow watching, shifting itself to keep them enclosed. As they stood there, Ben tried the doorknob, finding it unlocked. With a mixture of dread and resignation, they stepped inside once more, only to find the room altered, an unsettling, silent stranger, waiting with secrets that promised only terror. That night, the oppressive atmosphere of the Nowhere Hotel weighed down on Anna and Ben like a suffocating fog. As much as they had tried to make sense of the previous day's occurrences, they were left with more questions than answers. The silence of the hotel gnawed at them, a silence so profound that it felt alive, watching and listening to every word they dared to speak. Both felt trapped, tethered to an inexplicable force that seemed to grow stronger as the night descended. As they lay in bed, desperately hoping for sleep to give them a reprieve, they heard a faint noise in the hallway. It started as a soft shuffle, like the sound of heavy feet moving slowly along the carpeted floors, and grew louder as it approached their door. Anna and Ben held their breaths, listening intently as the steps paused just outside room 13. Anna strained to hear, the sound of her heartbeat thunderous in her ears, when suddenly there was a light tap at the door, barely a knock. Before she could react, the door creaked open just an inch, then swung wide as if pushed by an unseen hand. There, standing in the doorway, was the young woman who had brought them tea that morning. She looked no different, her face a blank mask, her eyes distant and unfocused, her movements robotic as though she were a puppet on invisible strings. Without a word, she stepped into the room, holding a silver tray with 2 small covered dishes. Anna shivered as the woman's gaze passed over her without recognition, her eyes dead, as if she were staring through them rather than at them. The woman set the tray down on the dresser with eerie precision and turned to leave. But just before she reached the door, Anna mustered the courage to call out, "Wait." The woman froze, her back still turned, her body stiff. Can you help us?" Anna's voice shook, but she forced herself to continue. "We're trying to leave, and well, the doors won't open." For a long moment, there was only silence. Then, without turning around, the woman spoke in a voice barely above a whisper. "You'll stay. Everyone stays. They're waiting for you." The words sent chills down Anna's spine. But before she could say anything more, the woman exited, leaving the door slightly ajar. Ben sprang up to follow her, desperate to get answers. But when he stepped into the hallway, it was empty. He could hear faint footsteps echoing down the corridor, but the hotel seemed to stretch longer and darker, swallowing the woman's figure as she disappeared into the shadows. Frustrated and bewildered, he returned to the room, closing the door behind him with a heavy sigh. They lifted the silver covers from the dishes left behind on the tray, revealing two perfectly arranged plates of food, a strange medley of roasted vegetables, meat they couldn't identify, and a small roll of bread. The food looked fresh and appetizing, but something about it felt wrong, like a stage display rather than a meal meant to be eaten. Ben pushed his plate away, but Anna, ravenous and exhausted, took a cautious bite. The taste was bland, almost metallic, but she forced herself to swallow, hoping that at least a full stomach would help her think clearly. After eating, a drowsy haze settled over Anna, her eyelids growing heavier with each passing minute. Ben, equally exhausted, reclined against the headboard, his eyes darting nervously around the room, half expecting someone else to barge in uninvited. They decided to take turns sleeping, each too unsettled to rest completely. Anna closed her eyes first, succumbing to the weariness that dragged her under. Just as she was about to slip into a dreamless sleep, she heard a faint murmur, a whisper so soft it was barely audible, yet insistent like a chant. Her eyes snapped open, and she turned to Ben, who was wide awake, staring at the wall with a look of terror etched onto his face. "Do you hear that?" he whispered. Anna nodded, too afraid to speak. The whispering grew louder, filling the room with a dozen voices all speaking at once, overlapping in strange, unintelligible words. Then, as abruptly as it started, the whispering ceased, replaced by the sound of soft humming, a lullaby echoing from the hallway, familiar yet distorted, as though played on a broken record. They crept to the door and peered out, hoping to catch a glimpse of the source. Down the hallway, illuminated by the dim glow of the wall sconces, a small group of staff members stood in a tight formation, facing one another with eyes closed. Each wore the same maroon uniform, their faces expressionless, their bodies swaying gently as they hummed the unsettling tune. It was a scene so surreal that Anna felt frozen in place, as though her body refused to obey her mind's desperate command to retreat. Just as she was about to pull Ben back into the room, one of the staff members, a man with hollow eyes and sunken cheeks, opened his eyes, fixing them directly on her. A flicker of recognition crossed his face, but instead of alarm, he gave a slow, chilling smile. Then, almost in unison, the others turned to face her, their empty expressions shifting into eerie smiles that seemed to stretch wider than humanly possible. Anna backed away, shutting the door firmly, her breath coming in short gasps. "Did you see that?" Ben whispered, his face pale. Anna nodded, clutching the doorknob as though it were a lifeline. They remained silent for a few agonizing minutes, waiting for footsteps, for whispers, for anything that might indicate that the staff were outside. But there was only silence, a silence that grew thicker, more sinister with every passing second. In desperation, Anna began to pace, her mind racing to make sense of their circumstances. Every rational thought she had was overpowered by a single certainty. The hotel staff were not human, or at least not entirely. She thought of the young woman's words, "They're waiting for you." But who were they? And what did they want? The questions swirled in her mind, unanswered and haunting. They decided to stay awake for the rest of the night, afraid of what might happen if they let their guard down. As the hours dragged on, Anna and Ben huddled together in silence, dreading the dawn, fearing the dark, and feeling the weight of eyes they could not see pressing down on them. Whatever the Nowhere Hotel was, they were certain of one thing. They were not alone, and whatever shared its walls with them was just waiting for the right moment to show itself fully. The dawn brought no relief to Anna and Ben. The fog clung stubbornly to the hotel, thick and unyielding, casting the Nowhere Hotel in a perpetual twilight that blurred the line between night and day. The silence felt heavier than ever, weighing down on them as they debated their next move. They had already tried the front doors and every window in the lobby, only to find them locked or sealed shut. The sense of being trapped gnawed at Anna, an anxiety that was quickly growing into full-blown dread. Ben suggested they explore the other floors in search of help, hoping that maybe, just maybe, there were other guests who felt as lost as they did. Despite the fact that every interaction they'd had with the staff had only deepened their confusion, They held on to a faint hope that other guests might provide some answers. Reluctantly, Anna agreed, and they stepped out into the long, winding hallway once more, its twisted angles disorienting them from the start. They made their way down a narrow staircase that led to the second floor, the wooden steps creaking under their weight. The second floor felt colder, the air carrying a faint, musty odor, as if the rooms here hadn't been opened in years. Each door they passed was closed tightly, some of them boarded up, while others had locks that appeared rusted and unused. The faded brass numbers on the doors glimmered faintly in the dim light, some missing entirely, leaving behind empty spaces like missing teeth in a grinning mouth. Ben knocked softly on the first door. They came to room 207. There was no answer. The silence on this floor felt different from the lobby and their own hallway. It was dense, almost impenetrable, as though it swallowed every sound before it could travel more than a few feet. He knocked again, louder this time, and after a long pause, they heard the faintest of rustlings from behind the door. Anna's eyes widened, and she pressed her ear against the wood, straining to hear anything beyond the faint scratching. Just as Ben was about to knock a third time, the door creaked open a sliver. A single eye appeared in the gap, bloodshot and wide, staring at them with a mixture of curiosity and fear. Are you also trapped here?" Anna whispered, desperate to make a connection. The eye blinked slowly, as though the person behind it was considering her words, before nodding almost imperceptibly. The door opened a bit wider, revealing a thin, middle-aged man with graying hair and dark circles under his eyes. He glanced down both ends of the hallway, his movements jittery and hesitant, before stepping aside to let them in. Inside, the room was cluttered, with strange symbols carved into the walls and scraps of paper scattered across every surface. He gestured for them to sit on the bed, which was covered in layers of blankets and sheets, as though he were trying to block something from sight. "My name's Elliot," the man said, his voice barely above a whisper. "You're new here, aren't you?" Anna and Ben nodded, eager for any answers he might offer. "We tried to leave," Anna said, "but the doors won't open. The staff, they're strange. And the other guests." Elliot cut her off with a wave of his hand, his face grim. "Yes, the staff. They're not like us. And the guests." His eyes darted to the window, where the fog loomed like a solid wall. "They come and go, but most of them, well, they don't leave." Ben leaned forward, his voice low. "What do you mean? Are they trapped here too?" Elliot looked at them both, a mixture of pity and fear in his gaze. "Some were guests, like you and me, but they change. After a while, the hotel, it does something to you." He hesitated, as though searching for the right words. "The longer you stay, the harder it is to remember why you're here, or even who you are. I've seen people disappear into the walls, heard their voices in the pipes. They become part of this place." A chill ran down Anna's spine. The implications of Elliot's words sank in, and she could feel her pulse quicken as she fought to keep her fear under control. "How long have you been here?" she asked softly, almost afraid to hear the answer. Elliot shrugged, his eyes distant. "I don't know. Weeks? Months? Time doesn't work right here. Some days I feel like I've been here forever." Desperation took hold of Ben, and he grabbed Elliot's shoulder. "There has to be a way out. You must have tried everything by now." Elliot smiled a sad, tired smile. "I did. I tried the windows, the doors, even tried breaking down walls. But the hotel, it's alive. It rearranges itself. Doors that once led outside now lead nowhere, or back to rooms you thought you'd left behind. It's as if it feeds on our attempts to escape, laughing at us." Suddenly, a soft knock at the door startled them all. Elliot's face went pale, and he motioned for silence, quickly moving to lock the door. He held a finger to his lips, signaling them not to make a sound. The knock came again, louder this time, persistent and rhythmic, as if whoever was outside knew they were within. They stayed frozen, barely daring to breathe as the knocks grew more insistent. Then, just as abruptly as they'd started, the knock stopped, leaving behind an oppressive silence. Elliot let out a shuddering breath and turned back to them, his expression haunted. "It's not just the staff you have to worry about," he whispered, his voice trembling. "Some of the other guests, they're no longer themselves. The hotel took something from them, twisted them. They're no longer human, but they still walk these halls, searching for others. Others like us. Anna and Ben exchanged a horrified glance, realizing that their nightmare was far darker and more complex than they'd imagined. The hotel was not merely haunted. It was a living, breathing entity, feeding on the souls trapped within its walls, twisting them into something unrecognizable. They knew then that their time was limited. Each moment they spent in the Nowhere Hotel, the closer they came to becoming part of it. Another lost guest wandering the endless halls in search of freedom they would never find. The silence of the Nowhere Hotel's hallways wrapped around Anna and Ben like a cold shroud as they made their way back to room 13. Elliot's warning lingered in their minds, a grim reminder that the hotel was more than just a building. It was a twisted, living thing, an entity that devoured its occupants slowly, eroding their sanity and sense of time. Every step they took felt like a descent further into its grip, each hallway more twisted and distorted than the last. As they passed a series of darkened rooms, Anna couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The walls, painted in faded, peeling wallpaper, seemed to close in, narrowing with each step. She tried to ignore the way the lights flickered overhead, casting eerie shadows that danced along the corridor. "It's like it's leading us somewhere," she whispered, glancing at Ben, who nodded grimly. They both sensed it. The hallway wasn't a mere passage. It was a path the hotel wanted them to follow, as if it had plans of its own. They reached a junction where the hallway split in 3 directions, each path extending into darkness. A strange sensation tugged at Anna, urging her toward the middle hallway, a narrow passage that seemed to pulse with a soft, rhythmic sound like a heartbeat. She looked at Ben, who shrugged, and without a word, they stepped into the middle corridor. The air grew colder, each breath they took clouding in front of them. The heartbeat-like sound grew louder, reverberating through the walls, an insistent, unnatural pulse that echoed in their chests. About halfway down the corridor, they heard a soft whisper, faint but distinct. It was a chorus of overlapping voices, blending together into a single, haunting melody. The words were garbled, barely intelligible, yet strangely familiar. Anna strained to make out the whispers, catching fragments of phrases. "Leave. While you can, remember us." Her heartbeat quickened, each phrase filling her with dread and a strange sorrow, as if the voices belonged to souls trapped within the walls, remnants of past guests who'd never escaped. Then, she saw it, a doorway at the end of the corridor, slightly ajar and glowing with a faint, ethereal light. The door wasn't numbered, nor did it bear any markings. Ben noticed her hesitation and whispered, "Do you think that's an exit?" Anna swallowed hard, unable to answer, her gaze fixed on the door as if it were drawing her in. Every instinct screamed for her to turn back, yet a morbid curiosity compelled her forward. She needed to know what lay beyond that threshold. Pushing the door open, they found themselves in a dimly lit room, circular and lined with mirrors that stretched from floor to ceiling. The mirrors seemed warped, bending in strange, unnatural ways that distorted their reflections. The walls were covered in black velvet, and the air was thick with the scent of old, rotting wood. Anna and Ben's reflections in the mirrors appeared normal at first, but as they took a step further inside, the images shifted, their faces twisting into expressions of terror, mouths open as though screaming silently. Ben's reflection began to move independently, its eyes widening, then narrowing, as though it were studying him. He took a step back, horrified, as his mirrored image tilted its head, grinning with a malevolence that he could feel radiate through the glass. "Anna," he whispered, unable to look away. I think they're watching us through these mirrors. Whoever, or whatever, controls this place." Anna moved closer to one of the mirrors, peering into the glass, her own reflection morphing into a terrified, hollow-eyed version of herself. Her mouth in the mirror moved, her reflection mouthing words she couldn't hear, but could somehow feel. "You have to get out," it seemed to say. She backed away, her pulse racing. These were no ordinary mirrors. They were a window into something far darker, a space where the hotel's true nature was laid bare and its sinister intentions revealed. As they turned to leave, a figure appeared in the mirrors behind them, flickering in and out of existence. It was a tall, shadowed form, faceless and robed in a dark cloak that billowed around it like smoke. The figure raised a hand, extending a finger that pointed directly at them. Ben froze, unable to move, his eyes locked on the figure. A voice, low and cold, echoed through the room, a single word that seemed to reverberate in their bones. "Stay." Panicked, Anna grabbed Ben's arm, pulling him toward the door. "We need to get out of here," she shouted, her voice barely a whisper in the oppressive silence. They stumbled through the doorway, slamming it shut behind them, their breaths coming in frantic gasps. The heartbeat-like sound faded, but the unsettling sense of being watched persisted, lingering in the silence that followed. They ran down the hallway, each step echoing in the empty corridors, only to find themselves back at the same junction, staring at the 3 identical hallways. Anna's heart sank. It was as though the hotel were toying with them, leading them in circles, trapping them in a loop from which there was no escape. The middle hallway looked exactly as it had before, each detail precisely the same, down to the faint pulsing sound emanating from its depths. Ben turned to Anna, his face pale. "This place, it doesn't just trap people. It warps reality." He looked down the other 2 hallways, each one seeming to stretch endlessly, disappearing into darkness. "I don't think there's a way out. Not a real one." His words weighed heavily on Anna, filling her with a sense of hopelessness that threatened to overwhelm her. In desperation, they chose the left hallway this time, hoping that somehow it might lead them to a new part of the hotel. They walked in silence, the oppressive air thickening with each step. The walls felt closer, pressing in on them as though they were being swallowed. After what felt like hours, they reached a dead end, a blank wall with no doors, no windows, only a single mirror mounted in the center. This mirror was different from the others. It was clearer, more polished, and reflected their own faces back at them without distortion. But as they watched, the mirror began to change, the surface rippling as though it were made of water. Slowly, another figure emerged in the reflection, an elderly man with hollow, sunken eyes and a name tag that read Mr. Algernon. He stared at them from within the glass, his expression grave, as if he were mourning their fate. He mouthed something slowly, his lips forming a single, unmistakable word: "Run." In a panic, Anna and Ben turned and ran back down the hallway, desperate to escape the reflection's grim warning. The walls shifted, the hotel rearranging itself as they sprinted, making it nearly impossible to navigate. But they kept running, fueled by terror, their only thought to put as much distance as possible between themselves and that twisted mirror. Finally, they reached the stairs, rushing up to their own floor, their hearts pounding as they arrived back at room 13. They locked the door behind them, their breaths ragged as they collapsed on the bed. The silence settled around them once more, but it was no comfort. It was the silence of a predator waiting for its prey, patient and unyielding. In the mirror on the dresser, their reflections stared back, but Anna could swear she saw a flicker of movement in the glass, a hint of something lurking just behind their images, watching, waiting. As the night stretched on, one thing became clear. The hotel wasn't merely trapping them. It was studying them, its dark intelligence calculating, anticipating their every move. The Nowhere Hotel was not just alive, it was a predator, and they were merely its latest catch. The following morning, Anna and Ben awoke with a vague, disoriented feeling, as though they had barely slept at all. The events of the previous day felt like fragments of a fever dream. Yet the growing fear in their chests confirmed that every horrifying moment had been real. The Nowhere Hotel had become more than just a prison. It was a maze of shifting corridors, dead-end hallways, and darkly enchanted mirrors that turned their very reflections into threats. Despite their terror, Anna and Ben resolved to keep searching for a way out. They knew they couldn't last much longer under the hotel's oppressive spell without losing themselves. Elliot's warning still haunted them. The hotel does something to you. It makes you forget. They needed to be vigilant, to remember why they were here and, most importantly, who they were. The hotel fed on those who surrendered, transforming them into twisted reflections of their former selves. They couldn't let that happen. Determined, Anna and Ben decided to explore the parts of the hotel they hadn't yet ventured into, hoping to find a hidden exit or at least a clue to unravel the mystery of this living labyrinth. Descending a different staircase than before, they found themselves on a floor that seemed abandoned, darker and colder than the others. The faint smell of mildew and decay filled the air, and the wallpaper was peeling, revealing patches of damp, cracked plaster beneath. There was an unsettling silence here, deeper and more oppressive than in the other parts of the hotel, as though even sound dared not linger too long. The doors along this hallway were unmarked, their surfaces worn and splintered with age. As they moved down the hallway, they noticed that each room had a unique, dark stain beneath its door, as though something had been leaking from within. Anna felt a shiver run down her spine. She was hesitant to approach any of the doors, but Ben moved forward, cautiously trying the handle of the first door they passed. Locked. He tried the next one, and then the one after that, all with the same result. Frustration and fear began to mount. But just as they were about to give up, they came upon a door at the end of the hallway that stood slightly ajar, as if inviting them inside. A strange sound drifted from within, a rhythmic tapping, like fingernails drumming against wood. Anna's heart pounded as she pushed the door open, revealing a dimly lit room. It was empty, save for an antique dresser and a single armchair facing away from the door. The air was thick, and the tapping sound grew louder, filling the space. The walls were lined with faded photographs. Guests who had once stayed at the hotel, their faces cheerful, unaware of the fate that awaited them. Each photograph was framed, arranged in a neat grid that covered the walls like a macabre wallpaper. Ben moved closer to examine the photos, his eyes scanning the faces. A sudden gasp escaped him as he recognized one of the images. It was Elliot, younger but unmistakably him, standing in front of the hotel entrance with an uncertain smile. Beside him was a woman who appeared to be his wife, her hand resting on his shoulder. Ben reached out to touch the photo, his fingers hovering over the glass. The instant he made contact, the photograph seemed to pulse, as though it were alive, and he snatched his hand back in alarm. Anna pulled Ben back, her eyes wide. This place, it's not just a trap, it's a memorial. It collects people. They both stood in silence, the weight of the realization settling heavily. This room was a graveyard of memories, a testament to all those who had once stayed at the Nowhere Hotel and had never left. Their minds raced, struggling to understand why this place existed and who or what controlled it. Each photograph seemed to watch them, the faces frozen in time, yet full of a quiet, haunting sadness. Turning away from the photos, Anna noticed a door in the corner of the room, small and unobtrusive, almost as if it were meant to go unnoticed. She walked toward it, her footsteps quiet, almost reverent. Unlike the other doors, this one was made of solid oak, polished and free of any marks or stains. She hesitated, a sense of foreboding washing over her, but something urged her forward. With a glance back at Ben, she reached for the handle, feeling its cold, smooth surface beneath her fingers, and slowly pushed it open. The door led to a narrow, winding staircase that descended into darkness. The air grew colder with each step, and an unnatural silence wrapped around them, muting even the sound of their breathing. As they descended, Anna's mind raced, imagining what might await them below. Was this an escape route, or was it another trap set by the hotel? The silence was absolute, swallowing every footfall as they spiraled deeper into the unknown. At the bottom of the staircase, they found themselves in a cavernous space that looked nothing like the rest of the hotel. The walls were bare stone, slick with moisture, and strange symbols were etched into the surface, glowing faintly in the darkness. In the center of the room stood an altar, an ancient, weathered slab of stone with deep grooves running along its surface. The grooves were stained dark, as if with old blood, and a thin, mist-like fog hovered above it, swirling and shifting as though alive. A figure stood by the altar, shrouded in shadows, their face hidden beneath a dark hood. They turned slowly as Anna and Ben entered, the hooded figure's movements deliberate, as if they had been waiting for them. When the figure spoke, their voice was low and calm, almost soothing, yet filled with an underlying menace that sent a chill through Anna's bones. "You've come far," the figure said, their voice echoing through the chamber. "Few make it this deep into the hotel." Ben took a step forward, his voice trembling with anger and desperation. "Who are you? Why are you keeping us here?" The figure chuckled, a sound that echoed off the stone walls like a sinister lullaby. "I am but a servant of the hotel. It feeds on souls, yes, but it's more than just a place. It's a gateway, a place where reality and the beyond converge. Those who enter become part of it, willingly or otherwise." The figure extended a hand, palm up, revealing a small, silver key resting in their outstretched fingers. "This is what you seek," they said, their voice as cold as the stone beneath their feet. "A way out, but freedom comes at a price." Anna stared at the key, her heart pounding. It looked so ordinary, so mundane, yet she knew it held a power far beyond its appearance. She glanced at Ben, seeing the same mix of hope and dread mirrored in his eyes. "Well, what's the price?" Anna asked, her voice barely a whisper. The figure's hood tilted, as though they were smiling beneath the shadow. "One of you must remain. One soul must stay behind, to bind the hotel's hunger and allow the other to leave. A life for a life. That is the cost of escape." The weight of the choice settled over them like a shroud, an impossible decision that tore at both their hearts. Anna and Ben looked at each other, their faces etched with despair. Neither could fathom leaving the other behind, yet both understood the horror of remaining trapped in the nowhere hotel forever. Silence stretched between them, filled with the unspoken agony of the choice they faced. Finally, Ben stepped forward, reaching for the key. His eyes met Anna's, a resigned smile playing on his lips. But before he could take it, Anna grabbed his hand, her grip firm and unwavering. "No," she whispered, her voice filled with a quiet strength. "We'll find another way. Together." She turned to the figure, her eyes hard, defiant. "There has to be another way out. We're not trading one life for another. We'll beat this place, both of us." The figure paused as though considering her words, and for a brief moment, the shadows around them seemed to flicker, as though the hotel itself was amused. The figure withdrew the key, slipping it back into the folds of their cloak. "Very well," they murmured. "You may try. But remember, the hotel always collects its due. It is patient, and it never forgets." With that, the figure faded into the shadows, their form dissolving into the mist that clung to the room, leaving Anna and Ben alone once more. The altar grew dark, the glow of the symbols fading, as though the hotel itself were retreating, watching, waiting. Anna and Ben stood in the silent chamber, feeling the weight of the hotel's gaze upon them. They had refused its offer, denied its price, but they knew this defiance came at a cost. The hotel would not let them leave easily. They had challenged its power, and now it would hunt them with renewed ferocity. Taking each other's hands, they turned and began the ascent back up the stairs, their only resolve to keep fighting, to keep searching, no matter what the Nowhere Hotel had in store for them. The climb back up the narrow, winding staircase felt longer than their descent, as though the hotel itself had stretched and twisted to trap them. Each step seemed to echo into an endless void, the sound swallowed by the oppressive silence. Anna and Ben felt the weight of the Nowhere Hotel bearing down on them, a presence that seemed to press against their minds, probing for weakness. Yet, united in defiance, they clung to the fragile hope that there might still be a way to escape its clutches. As they emerged back onto the floor from which they had started, the hallway appeared changed. The once familiar corridor was now unrecognizable, lined with strange symbols etched into the peeling wallpaper. The lights above flickered erratically, casting long, distorted shadows that twisted and writhed as if they were alive. It was as if the hotel had shed any last pretense of normalcy, revealing its true form. The air was thick and heavy, filled with a stale scent that reminded Anna of old books and damp earth. Every inch of the place now felt like a warning, a reminder that they were trespassing within a space beyond their understanding. Ben reached out to touch one of the symbols, his fingers grazing the wallpaper. At his touch, the symbol seemed to pulse, glowing faintly beneath his hand, and he pulled back in alarm. As he did, they both heard a faint whisper emanate from the walls, a sound like wind passing through narrow gaps. Yet, as they listened, the whisper grew clearer, forming words that seemed to drift from the depths of the hotel. Stay with us," the voice murmured, echoing down the hall. A chill ran down Anna's spine. She recognized the voice, although she couldn't place it. It was as though the hotel were mimicking voices from her memory, blending fragments of her past with the hotel's own dark nature. The effect was haunting, making her feel as if the very walls knew her deepest secrets and fears. She reached for Ben's hand, clinging to him for reassurance. He squeezed her hand in return, his eyes scanning the corridor for any signs of an exit, his resolve mirroring her own. As they walked forward, they became aware of a low hum reverberating through the floor, a subtle vibration that seemed to intensify with each step. It wasn't until they passed a doorway marked maintenance that they realized the sound was coming from beyond it. Ben paused, eyeing the door with trepidation. "Maybe it leads to the power room? Or a generator?" he suggested, though the uncertainty in his voice betrayed his own unease. Anna nodded, her curiosity piqued by the possibility. She opened the door cautiously, and they entered a narrow, dimly lit stairwell that led down into the depths of the hotel. The sound grew louder as they descended, transforming from a low hum into an eerie, pulsating beat that echoed in time with their footsteps. It was as though the hotel itself had a heartbeat, a relentless, unceasing pulse that seemed to throb in the walls and floor. They both felt a sickening realization that this sound was more than mechanical. It was almost organic, like the life force of the building itself. At the bottom of the stairs, they found a cavernous room filled with ancient machinery, pipes winding like veins along the walls and ceiling. The air was thick with steam, which hissed from several of the pipes, clouding the room in a heavy fog. The heartbeat sound was deafening here, each pulse reverberating through their bodies, resonating deep within their chests. The machines appeared rusted, yet they pulsed with a strange vitality, as though powered by something far older than mere electricity. Anna's eyes fell upon a large, circular hatch set into the floor at the center of the room. Unlike the surrounding machinery, the hatch was pristine, gleaming under the dim light. Engraved around its edge were more symbols, similar to those they had seen upstairs, each one glowing faintly. Instinctively, she took a step back, unnerved by the hatch's strange allure. "This feels wrong," she whispered, sensing that whatever lay beneath the hatch was something the hotel intended them to find, but at a steep, hidden cost. Despite her trepidation, Ben knelt beside the hatch, running his fingers over the symbols. He frowned, squinting as he traced the grooves. "These symbols, they're like a warning. I don't know how I know that, but I can feel it." As he spoke, the heartbeat seemed to intensify, as if reacting to his presence, growing louder and faster. Ben's hand moved to the latch, hovering as though drawn to it by an unseen force. Anna grabbed his wrist, pulling him back before he could open it. "Don't! Whatever's down there, it's part of the hotel's trap. We can't let it get into our heads," she insisted, her voice trembling with urgency. Ben looked up at her, the spell of the hatch momentarily broken, and nodded. He stepped away, casting one last, wary glance at the hatch as they turned back toward the stairwell. The heartbeat sound followed them as they climbed the stairs, fading only once they had closed the door behind them. But as they returned to the hallway, they realized that their surroundings had shifted again. Where they had entered the maintenance stairwell, there was now an unfamiliar hallway, narrow and winding, stretching out into darkness. The hotel was disorienting them, leading them deeper into its labyrinthine depths, as if it sensed their fear and desperation. They walked in silence, both acutely aware that the walls seemed to close in around them, the air thick with anticipation. Shadows danced along the wallpaper, morphing into shapes that seemed almost alive. Occasionally, Anna thought she heard a whisper or caught a glimpse of movement from the corner of her eye. But when she turned, there was nothing. The hallway stretched endlessly, each turn leading them further from any sense of familiarity or escape. Finally, they reached a dead end. In front of them was a single door, its surface smooth and dark, unlike any other door they had seen in the hotel. The handle gleamed, polished and inviting, yet something about it filled them both with an overwhelming sense of dread. They looked at each other, hesitant to enter, but understanding that there was no other way forward. Taking a deep breath, Anna reached for the handle, and as her hand made contact, a shiver ran through her body. She pushed the door open slowly, revealing a small room lit by a single, dim bulb hanging from the ceiling. The walls were bare, save for a large mirror on the far wall. Anna and Ben stepped inside, their reflections staring back at them, mirroring their wearied expressions. But as they looked closer, they noticed that their reflections were slightly off. Their eyes appeared darker, and their expressions held a hint of malice that didn't match their own. Suddenly, the door slammed shut behind them, and the light flickered, casting shadows that twisted across the walls. Their reflections began to move independently, their faces contorting into expressions of horror and pain. The mirror seemed to ripple like water, and their reflections began to fade, replaced by images of past guests, each one trapped in a moment of terror. They watched in horror as one of the faces transformed into Elliot, his face twisted in agony, reaching out as if pleading for their help. The room began to feel stifling, the air thick and heavy. The mirror's surface grew darker, and faint whispers filled the room, voices of the trapped souls calling out, begging for release. Anna and Ben backed away, their eyes wide with terror. They realized, with a sinking dread, that the hotel was showing them the fate of those who resisted it. These people had tried to escape, had fought against the hotel's hold, and had paid the ultimate price. As the whispers grew louder, filling the room with an unbearable cacophony of despair, Anna and Ben closed their eyes, clutching each other tightly. The darkness in the room seemed to press against them, a physical weight that threatened to crush them. But as they stood together, they felt a spark of defiance rekindle within them. They would not end up like the faces in the mirror. They would fight until the very end, even if it meant sacrificing everything. When they opened their eyes, the room was silent, the mirror reflecting only their own haunted faces once more. The door behind them had reopened, and they stepped back into the hallway, shaken but resolute. The hotel had tried to break them, to fill them with despair, but they refused to surrender. They walked forward, knowing that the Nowhere Hotel would continue to test them, to wear down their spirits, but they were determined to escape its clutches or die trying. Anna and Ben moved through the halls of the Nowhere Hotel with an eerie silence pressing down on them, as if the building itself were holding its breath. Each step they took seemed to echo, amplifying their fear that every sound they made was baiting something lurking just out of sight. The walls seemed alive, shifting subtly, almost breathing, while the dull hum of whispers continued, filling the space with voices too quiet to understand but impossible to ignore. The hotel was more than just a prison. It was a predator, and they were trapped within its jaws. The hotel appeared to be growing bolder in its attempts to break their spirits. Rooms that had once seemed familiar had transformed into nightmarish versions of themselves, filled with bizarre, twisted relics of past guests. They came upon a library, its walls lined with crumbling books that smelled of decay and dust. As Anna reached out to examine a book, her hand froze. The cover was adorned with a small nameplate that read Elliot Simmons. Opening it, she found not a story, but a journal filled with entries from Elliot's time in the hotel. Each entry revealed his descent into despair, documenting his futile attempts to escape and the horrors he had encountered within. Anna's hands trembled as she flipped through the pages. Elliot's final entries were scrawled in a shaky, hurried hand. There's no way out. The hotel changes. It knows what we fear. I've seen faces in the mirror that aren't mine. It's like I'm already dead, walking in some hellish purgatory where time and reality twist and blur. Anna's eyes stung with tears as she imagined Elliot desperately trying to leave, trapped by forces beyond his understanding. She closed the journal and placed it back on the shelf, feeling the weight of his hopelessness settle into her bones. They turned to leave the library, only to find the door had vanished, replaced by a solid, blank wall. Panic gripped them both as they searched for another exit, but the walls offered no relief. The library seemed to close in, suffocating them with the knowledge that they were surrounded by the remnants of those who had been trapped here before. Ben pounded on the wall, desperation evident in his eyes. It's like it wants us to know there's no escape. It's playing with us like we're its toys. As they struggled to comprehend their situation, a shadow flitted past a row of bookshelves, catching Anna's attention. She turned, searching for the source, but saw only the faintest shimmer in the air, like a mirage. Before she could speak, the shimmer resolved into the shape of a man who looked as if he were barely there, his form translucent, flickering in and out like an old, faulty television image. It was Elliot, or at least what remained of him, his face etched with exhaustion and sorrow. Ben gasped as he saw Elliot, his voice barely a whisper. "Elliot, is it really you?" The ghostly figure nodded, his expression one of deep sadness. "You have to leave," he murmured, his voice echoing in the oppressive silence. "The hotel won't let you go easily, but there is one way. It's hidden, buried deep in its walls, where only those who know despair can reach it." His form wavered, flickering in the dim light, as though the hotel were actively fighting against his presence. Anna and Ben listened in stunned silence as Elliot continued, his voice strained as though he were fighting against a force that sought to silence him. "You must find the forgotten guests. That we are the only ones who know the way. The hotel has buried us, but we are still here, shadows in its halls, bound to it as punishment for our failures. Find us, and maybe you'll have a chance." With that, Elliot's figure grew dim, flickering out of existence with a final, despairing look. The room shifted abruptly as soon as Elliot disappeared. The blank wall that had trapped them within the library faded away, replaced by an open doorway leading back into the hallway. Ben hesitated, his eyes filled with uncertainty. "Forgotten guests, he makes it sound like they're everywhere, watching us, suffering for eternity." His voice trailed off, weighed down by the horror of their situation. Anna took his hand, gripping it tightly. "Then we'll find them. If Elliot says there's a way, we have to believe him. We owe it to him and everyone else trapped here." As they re-entered the hallway, they noticed that the air felt colder, thicker, and the shadows that lingered in the corners seemed to watch them with malicious intent. Moving forward, they encountered an unusual door with no number or sign, just a faint, ghostly glow emanating from its edges. It looked older than the rest, its wood warped and faded, as if it had been part of the hotel since its inception. They opened it cautiously and stepped into a vast room filled with mirrors, each reflecting warped and twisted versions of their own faces. Anna and Ben tried to avoid looking directly into the mirrors, feeling a primal fear that their reflections would somehow trap them within. But as they walked, one mirror caught their attention. Unlike the others, this mirror reflected a man and a woman standing together, dressed in clothes from an era long past. Their expressions were frozen in terror, eyes wide, hands pressed against the glass as if trying to escape. Anna stepped closer, her heart pounding as she realized these were the forgotten guests, souls trapped within the hotel's walls, locked in eternal torment. As they watched, the figures in the mirror began to move, their mouths forming words that were silent but unmistakable. "Find the basement," they mouthed, gesturing with desperate hands toward the ground. "The way out is there, buried deep." The figures faded as they spoke, their forms dissipating like mist until only the mirror remained, reflecting Anna and Ben's pale, fearful faces. The silence in the room was absolute. A moment stretched into eternity as they absorbed the enormity of the revelation. Anna whispered, her voice breaking the oppressive quiet. The basement. That must be where the hotel's heart is, where it draws its power. But if the hotel is alive, how do we get close without it stopping us? Ben clenched his fists, his jaw set in determination. We keep moving. If we're close enough to see them, then we're getting closer to the truth. Whatever the cost, we have to try. Leaving the mirrored room, they navigated the endless twists and turns of the hotel, their path guided by vague, flickering impressions of people watching from the periphery. Faint, transparent faces appeared momentarily in doorways and windows, silently urging them on, each one bearing the same message: the basement, the way out. Anna and Ben understood that these were more forgotten guests, souls condemned to haunt the hotel's walls for eternity. Their presence filled them with a renewed sense of urgency, a reminder of the fate that awaited them if they failed. Finally, they came upon a service elevator tucked away in a dark corner, barely visible under layers of dust and cobwebs. Its metal doors were battered and worn, and an out-of-order sign hung crookedly on its handle. Ignoring the sign, Anna and Ben pried the doors open, revealing a dark, narrow shaft that stretched downward into pitch-black depths. There was no light, no indication of where it led, only the faintest feeling of cold air drifting up from below. They stepped inside, bracing themselves as the elevator creaked and groaned under their weight, descending slowly, reluctantly, as if the hotel itself were resisting their movement. Each second felt stretched, each creak of the cables a reminder that they were plunging deeper into the heart of the Nowhere Hotel, closer to the place where its dark power resided. They clung to each other, both hoping that whatever lay at the bottom would offer the escape that Elliot and the forgotten guests had promised. As the elevator reached the bottom, the doors opened with a low, ominous hiss, revealing a cavernous space shrouded in darkness. The air was thick and suffocating, filled with a sense of dread that made their skin prickle. Ahead, a faint glow illuminated a narrow path leading deeper into the basement, where shadows moved and shifted like living things. They stepped forward, every instinct screaming for them to turn back, but they knew that this was their only chance to escape. Their journey was far from over, but as they ventured into the unknown depths, Anna and Ben were filled with a determination stronger than their fear. They had come too far to turn back now, too close to surrender to the hotel's dark pull. And though they could not see the way forward, they clung to the whispered hope of freedom, driven by the voices of the forgotten guests who had shown them the path. They would face whatever lay ahead together, determined to escape the Nowhere Hotel or die trying. As Anna and Ben stepped into the darkness of the basement, an overwhelming sense of dread enveloped them. The faint glow ahead pulsed rhythmically, casting long shadows that danced along the damp, concrete walls. The air was thick with moisture, and a faint, acrid smell lingered, reminiscent of mildew and rot. Each step they took echoed unnaturally in the stillness, amplifying their unease. They understood that they were now entering the heart of the Nowhere Hotel, the epicenter of its dark power. The narrow path they followed twisted and turned, occasionally branching off into other darkened tunnels that seemed to beckon them into oblivion. They felt a growing compulsion to explore these offshoots, but Anna's instincts urged caution. "We need to focus on the source of this glow," she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. Ben nodded, gripping her hand tightly. "Right? We'll follow the light. It's our only chance." As they pressed forward, the glow intensified, revealing strange markings on the walls. Symbols similar to those they had seen earlier appeared, but here they seemed alive, shifting and swirling as if imbued with an otherworldly energy. The light pulsed in time with a low, resonant hum that vibrated in their bones, creating a disorienting sensation that made them question their footing and their sanity. It was as though the hotel were alive, breathing around them, watching their every move. Suddenly, the path opened into a large chamber, the source of the glow revealed as a massive, pulsating orb suspended in the center. It floated inches above the ground, shimmering with an iridescent light that shifted colors, bathing the chamber in an ethereal glow. The air around it shimmered, distorting the space like heat rising off asphalt. As they stepped closer, the hum grew louder, enveloping them in a cocoon of sound that resonated deep within their chests. This must be it, Anna breathed, her heart racing as she reached out instinctively toward the orb, the hotel's power source. But as her fingers grazed the surface, a surge of energy jolted through her, causing her to recoil. Visions flooded her mind, flashes of the hotel's past, of guests arriving, laughing, and then fading into despair. She saw the faces of those trapped here, including Elliot, their pleas for help echoing in her head. It was a cacophony of torment, a reminder of the hotel's insatiable hunger for souls. Ben, sensing her distress, stepped closer. "What do you see?" he asked, concern etched on his face. "What is it?" Anna struggled to articulate the whirlwind of images that filled her mind. It's feeding off their fear, their despair. This orb, it's the hotel's heart, but it's also a prison. It traps their souls, using them to sustain itself. "We have to destroy it." Her voice trembled with determination, and Ben nodded, his own resolve solidifying. They searched the chamber for something, anything that could be used to shatter the orb's hold on the hotel. Ben's eyes darted around, landing on the walls where the symbols pulsed with energy. "Maybe the symbols are a key," he suggested. "If they're connected to the orb, we might be able to use them to break its power." Anna stepped back, scanning the walls. "If we can figure out their meaning, perhaps we can reverse whatever binds the souls to this place." As they examined the symbols more closely, they began to notice a pattern, a sequence that seemed to resonate with the hum of the orb. Working together, they traced the symbols in the air, their movements guided by an instinct they couldn't quite explain. Each stroke seemed to draw energy from the orb, amplifying the vibrations in the room. The air crackled with tension, and Anna could feel the weight of the trapped souls pressing in around them, urging them on. Suddenly, the orb flashed brightly, and a wave of energy surged through the chamber, knocking them both back. As they scrambled to regain their footing, they could hear the anguished cries of the forgotten guests filling the air, their voices merging into a chilling chorus. "Free us! Free us!" the voices cried in unison, their desperation echoing in the chamber like a haunting melody. "Anna!" Ben shouted, panic in his voice. "We have to finish this." They redoubled their efforts, pushing through the pain and the weight of despair. With each symbol they traced, the orb flickered, its glow dimming ever so slightly. Anna focused all her energy, drawing upon the strength of those who had come before them, channeling their collective anguish into her movements. Finally, they completed the sequence, the last symbol sending a shockwave through the chamber. The orb erupted with light, pulsating violently as it began to crack, fissures spiderwebbing across its surface. "It's working. Keep going," Ben urged, his voice fierce with determination. As they pressed on, the chamber filled with a blinding light, engulfing them in a maelstrom of energy. The air crackled, and for a moment, Anna felt weightless, suspended in a realm beyond reality. Images of the hotel's past flashed before her eyes, the joy of new arrivals, the creeping despair, and finally the faces of the forgotten guests, free at last. As the orb shattered, a wave of energy surged through the chamber, carrying with it the cries of the trapped souls. "Thank you, thank you," they echoed, their voices rising in a crescendo of relief and gratitude. When the light faded, Anna and Ben found themselves standing in the chamber, panting, surrounded by remnants of the orb's shattered surface. The air felt different now, lighter, as if a great weight had been lifted. They could sense that the hotel was changing. The oppressive presence that had loomed over them was dissipating, leaving behind a fragile hope. But before they could celebrate their victory, a low rumble echoed through the chamber, vibrating beneath their feet. The walls began to tremble, dust cascading from the ceiling. "We need to get out of here," Ben shouted, his eyes wide with urgency. They raced back down the twisting path, the vibrations intensifying as the hotel reacted to their actions. The Nowhere Hotel was awakening, and they knew that time was running out. As they sprinted toward the service elevator, the chamber behind them began to collapse, walls cracking and crumbling. Just as they reached the elevator, a section of the ceiling collapsed, blocking their escape route. "No!" Anna screamed, panic rising within her. But as the dust settled, the elevator doors opened wide, beckoning them into the darkness. With no other choice, they dove inside, the doors slamming shut behind them. The elevator began its ascent, shaking violently as the hotel protested their escape. "Hold on!" Ben shouted, gripping Anna's hand tightly. The tremors intensified, the walls vibrating with fury, as if the hotel were unleashing its last desperate attempt to keep them trapped within its grasp. Finally, the elevator lurched to a stop, the doors creaking open to reveal the hallway they had first entered. The atmosphere had shifted, the air lighter, almost cleansing. They stumbled out into the corridor, the hotel feeling different, less suffocating, less malevolent. They were free from the basement, but they knew their battle was not yet over. As they moved toward the main entrance, the whispers of the forgotten guests faded into the background, replaced by an overwhelming silence. The hotel's power had been diminished, but Anna and Ben knew they had to find a way to escape entirely. With renewed resolve, they pressed forward, ready to confront whatever lay ahead in their quest for freedom, determined to break the cycle of despair that had trapped so many before them. Emerging from the depths of the Nowhere Hotel, Anna and Ben stepped into a corridor that felt eerily calm, yet laden with a palpable tension. The oppressive atmosphere that had once gripped them seemed to have lessened, but they remained acutely aware that their freedom was not guaranteed. The memories of the forgotten guests lingered in the air, whispers of hope mingling with the remnants of despair. Every step they took echoed softly, a reminder of the weight they had just shed, but also of the journey still ahead. As they moved toward the front entrance, they noticed subtle changes in the environment around them. The walls, once dark and foreboding, had shifted to a more muted, less menacing hue. Faded photographs lined the hallway, capturing moments of joy that felt foreign in the context of their recent experiences. Each image portrayed guests from different eras, smiling faces seemingly unaware of the horrors that lay beneath the hotel's veneer of hospitality. Anna felt a pang of sorrow for these lost souls, now forever entwined with the hotel's fate. Approaching the grand lobby, they paused, absorbing the stark contrast to the chaos they had just escaped. The ornate chandeliers above cast warm light on the polished marble floor, illuminating the remnants of their ordeal. Yet, a sense of foreboding still clung to the atmosphere. The front desk, once a hub of activity, now sat abandoned, the bell that signaled arrivals covered in a thick layer of dust. It was as if the hotel itself had grown weary, waiting for the next guest to arrive. "Do you think it's really over?" Ben asked, his voice low and uncertain. "What if the hotel still has some tricks up its sleeve?" Anna turned to him, meeting his gaze with a fierce determination. "We've come this far. We can't let fear control us now. We have to keep moving, together." They pressed on, their hearts pounding with the urgency of their escape. As they approached the front doors, a sudden chill swept through the lobby, and the flickering lights overhead dimmed momentarily. Shadows danced in the corners of the room, and Anna could sense the hotel's malevolent spirit clawing at the edges of their resolve. Just as they reached for the doors, a thunderous crash reverberated through the building, shaking the very foundation beneath their feet. The walls trembled, and a deep growl resonated from the depths of the hotel, reminding them that they were still not safe. "Run!" Ben shouted, and they sprinted toward the exit, urgency fueling their every step. The atmosphere grew increasingly chaotic, furniture rattling and the lights flickering erratically as they neared the front doors. Anna could feel the pulse of the hotel behind them, its darkness attempting to ensnare them one last time. Just as they reached the threshold, a shadow darted across their path, momentarily freezing them in place. Out of the darkness emerged a figure, a ghostly visage of a woman with hollow eyes and a sorrowful expression. It was one of the forgotten guests, her form flickering like an old film reel. "Help us," she cried, her voice echoing with a mixture of urgency and despair. Anna felt a pang of empathy, but Ben tugged at her arm, desperation filling his voice. "We can't. We have to go." With a heavy heart, Anna shook her head, knowing that their primary focus had to be their own survival. "I'm sorry," she whispered to the apparition, her words hanging in the air like a fragile promise. They pushed past the spectral figure, barreling through the front doors just as the hotel erupted in chaos behind them. The ground shook violently, and the very fabric of the Nowhere Hotel seemed to tear apart, shadows swirling in a frenzy. As they burst outside into the cool night air, a wave of relief washed over them. They stumbled onto the driveway, the open sky above contrasting starkly with the darkness they had just escaped. But their respite was short-lived. The ground beneath their feet trembled, and they could see the hotel shifting, its walls bending and warping as if reacting to their departure. "We need to get further away," Anna urged, pulling Ben with her as they dashed across the lawn, breathless and wide-eyed. The hotel began to implode, walls collapsing inward like a dying beast. A cacophony of shattering glass and splintering would fill the air as it finally succumbed to its own darkness, the oppressive weight of the forgotten guests and their collective despair driving it to collapse under its own sorrow. They paused for a moment, the sheer force of the hotel's demise pushing them backward as they watched it cave in on itself, swirling shadows engulfing the structure. "Did we really do it?" Ben panted, awe and disbelief coloring his voice as they stumbled to the edge of the property, watching the chaos unfold. "Did we really break the cycle?" Anna nodded, tears brimming in her eyes. "I think we did. We set them free." The ground continued to tremble, but the oppressive weight of the hotel's presence was lifting, releasing its grip on the area as the shadows dissipated into the night. In the distance, the first light of dawn began to break through the horizon, illuminating the remnants of the hotel as it crumbled to dust. They stood hand in hand, witnessing the birth of a new day, one that signified hope and the end of an era. "We need to find help," Anna said, her voice steadying as they turned to leave the desolate remains behind. "Others may still be trapped, and we have to warn them." As they made their way down the driveway, the weight of their experience began to settle in, a mixture of relief and grief washing over them. The shadows of the forgotten guests lingered in their minds, a haunting reminder of those who had suffered before them. But they also carried the knowledge that they had defied the darkness, that they had reclaimed their lives from the abyss. "Where do we go now?" Ben asked as they reached the edge of the property, uncertainty creeping back into his voice. Anna looked toward the rising sun, its golden rays casting a warm glow over the landscape. "We go forward," she said firmly, squeezing his hand. "We live. We find a way to honor them, to ensure that no one else falls victim to that hotel's darkness." With newfound determination, they set off down the road, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. They were not just survivors. They were a testament to resilience, bound by their shared experience and the commitment to shine a light in the darkest corners of the world. The Nowhere Hotel may have been reduced to ruins, but Anna and Ben carried with them the promise of hope, a beacon to guide others away from despair, forever vigilant against the shadows that sought to ensnare them. As the sun rose higher in the sky, casting a warm glow over the landscape, Anna and Ben felt a sense of liberation mixed with lingering sorrow. They walked hand in hand along the road that led away from the Nowhere Hotel, each step taking them further from the horrors they had just escaped and closer to a future undefined. Yet, the shadows of their experience hung over them, whispering secrets and memories that would not fade easily. The road stretched endlessly ahead, lined with trees that swayed gently in the morning breeze, as if welcoming them into a new chapter of their lives. The world felt different, vibrant and alive, yet tinged with an uneasiness that clung to their hearts. As they journeyed, Anna's mind raced with thoughts of the forgotten guests they had encountered, She felt an overwhelming responsibility to honor their memories, to ensure that the darkness they had witnessed would not claim any more victims. "We need to tell people what happened," she said, breaking the silence that had settled between them. "We need to make sure that hotel is remembered for what it truly was." Ben nodded, his expression serious. "You're right. But how? Who would believe us? It's not just a story. It's a warning." They both understood the challenge ahead. The tale of a nowhere hotel would sound like the ramblings of the insane to those who hadn't experienced its horrors firsthand. Yet, they also realized that staying silent would be an affront to those who had suffered within its walls. "We'll find a way," Anna replied, determination coursing through her. "We'll make them listen." As they continued down the winding road, they encountered a small town nestled in the valley below. It was picturesque, with colorful houses and bustling streets filled with life. Children played in the yards, and the aroma of fresh-baked goods wafted through the air from a nearby cafe. The normalcy of it all felt surreal, a stark contrast to the chaos they had just escaped. But beneath the surface, Anna could sense an underlying current of fear, a town that thrived on its ignorance of the darkness lurking nearby. They entered the cafe, seeking a moment of respite and a chance to gather their thoughts. The bell above the door jingled, drawing the attention of the barista, an elderly woman with kind eyes and a warm smile. "Welcome. What can I get for you?" she asked, her voice soothing. Anna and Ben exchanged glances, the weight of their story pressing down on them. "2 coffees, please," Anna replied, her voice shaky but resolute. As they sat at a small table by the window, they observed the townsfolk going about their day, laughing and chatting, seemingly oblivious to the horrors they had just endured. Ben stirred his coffee, his brow furrowed in thought. "What if we told someone here? Someone who could help us spread the word," he suggested, his voice barely above a whisper. Anna considered the idea, but doubt crept in. What if they don't believe us? What if they think we're crazy? Their conversation was interrupted by a group of locals seated nearby, animatedly discussing recent events in the area. "Did you hear about the hotel up on the hill? It's supposed to be haunted," one woman exclaimed, her voice tinged with excitement. Anna's heart raced at the mention of the Nowhere Hotel. "They say no one comes back the same after staying there," another chimed in, laughter lacing her words. Anna's stomach churned to the flippant way they spoke about the horrors they had just witnessed. "What do you mean, haunted?" Ben asked, unable to contain his curiosity. The group turned their attention to them, surprise flickering across their faces. "Oh, it's just an old tale," a man said, waving his hand dismissively. "People go up there looking for a thrill, but they come back with nothing but stories of shadows and whispers. It's just a spooky hotel. No one really believes it." Anna's heart sank as she realized how deeply the myth of the hotel had taken root in the community. "It's not just a story," she interjected, her voice steady despite the tremors of anxiety beneath. "We were there. We escaped." The group exchanged skeptical glances, laughter fading from their faces. "You can't be serious," one woman said, disbelief etched across her features. "People go missing there all the time, but that doesn't mean it's real. You must have just gotten lost." Ben leaned in, his frustration bubbling to the surface. "People lost their lives there. It's not just some spooky tale. There are souls trapped within those walls. You need to listen to us." The atmosphere shifted, and Anna could feel the tension thickening in the air. She sensed the townsfolk were uncomfortable, unsure of how to react to their claims. "We can prove it," she insisted, desperation creeping into her tone. "We can help you understand." The barista approached, sensing the rising conflict. Now, let's not get too heated," she said gently. "Why don't you share your story? Maybe it's just what these folks need to hear." With a nod of encouragement from Ben, Anna took a deep breath, preparing to recount their harrowing tale. "It's true," she began, her voice trembling yet filled with conviction. "The Nowhere Hotel is more than just a spooky place. It's a prison for lost souls, and we've witnessed the horrors that take place inside." As she spoke, the cafe grew quiet, the chatter fading into an eerie stillness. Eyes turned to her, skepticism giving way to curiosity. She described the forgotten guests, the oppressive atmosphere, and the orb that had held the hotel's power. With each word, she wove a tapestry of their experiences, painting vivid images in the minds of the townsfolk. "We need to honor those souls," Anna implored, her heart racing as she felt the weight of her words. "We can't let this place be forgotten. It must be known for what it truly is." When she finished, a heavy silence hung in the air, punctuated only by the sound of coffee cups clinking against saucers. Slowly, the group began to process what they had heard. "If what you say is true, we need to do something," the man who had first dismissed them finally said. "We can't just let it stand. We have to warn others." The barista nodded in agreement, her expression serious. "This could be our chance to protect those who might unknowingly venture there." Anna and Ben exchanged hopeful glances, sensing the shift in the room. Perhaps they had found allies in their fight against the darkness of the Nowhere Hotel. "We could organize a town meeting," the woman suggested. "Spread the word, gather more stories. If there's any truth to this, we can't ignore it." Encouraged by their reaction, Anna felt a surge of optimism. "Yes, we can create a community effort to raise awareness and support for those affected." As they spoke, plans began to take shape, a rallying cry against the shadows that threatened their town. The cafe transformed from a simple eatery into a hub of action, filled with the energy of individuals committed to exposing the truth behind the haunted hotel. Anna felt a wave of relief wash over her. They had found their purpose beyond mere survival. They were no longer victims but activists, ready to confront the darkness that had plagued so many. Hours passed as they discussed strategies and shared their stories, a newfound bond forming among the townsfolk. By the time the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the cafe, Anna and Ben felt a sense of fulfillment. They had taken the first steps toward healing, both for themselves and for the community that had unwittingly turned a blind eye to the horrors nearby. With plans in place and support from the townsfolk, they knew they were not alone in their fight. They left the cafe that evening, hand in hand, ready to face the challenges ahead. Their resolve strengthened. They had ignited a spark of awareness that could bring about change. The echoes of the past would no longer haunt them in silence. They would speak out and ensure that the darkness of the Nowhere Hotel would never claim another victim again. The following days unfolded in a whirlwind of activity for Anna and Ben as they committed themselves to raising awareness about the Nowhere Hotel and the terrors that resided within its walls. The town rallied around them, igniting a spirit of community that had long been dormant. Meetings were organized and flyers were distributed, detailing not only the couple's harrowing experiences, but also the unsettling history of the hotel that had consumed so many souls. It was a daunting task, yet they felt a profound sense of purpose driving them forward. As they met with various community members, they discovered the hotel's dark legacy was more extensive than they had anticipated. Stories began to emerge, whispers of people who had vanished without a trace, rumors of strange sounds emanating from the hotel late at night, and chilling tales of former guests who returned altered, their minds clouded with shadows. Each new account served as a chilling reminder of the hotel's impact and strengthened their resolve to act. They compiled these stories into a document they would share during the upcoming town meeting, aiming to equip the community with the knowledge needed to confront the darkness. On the evening of the town meeting, the local community center buzzed with an undercurrent of nervous energy. Chairs filled quickly as residents from all walks of life gathered to hear what Anna and Ben had to say. The couple stood at the front of the room, their hearts racing with a mixture of fear and determination. This was their chance to confront the shadows that had haunted not only them, but their entire town. As the meeting began, Anna took a deep breath and stepped forward to speak. "Thank you all for coming," she began, her voice steady despite the fluttering in her stomach. "We're here tonight because we believe it's time to talk about the Nowhere Hotel, to shed light on the darkness that has shrouded it for far too long." She recounted their harrowing experiences in vivid detail, emphasizing the moments when they felt the weight of the hotel's malevolence pressing down on them. The room was silent, the audience hanging on her every word as she described the shadows that lurked and the forgotten guests who cried out for help. Ben followed, sharing the stories they had collected from others who had encountered the hotel's horrors. As he spoke, murmurs rippled through the crowd, disbelief, concern, and a growing sense of urgency. The more they spoke, the more the townsfolk began to connect the dots, piecing together a puzzle that had long been left unsolved. "We're not just here to tell our story," Ben said, passion fueling his voice. "We're here to ensure that no one else suffers like those before us. We need to act before it's too late." As they finished, the room erupted in applause, but it was quickly followed by a wave of questions and comments from the audience. "What can we do?" one woman asked, her face pale with worry. "How do we keep our families safe?" Others chimed in, expressing their disbelief and concern about the hotel's presence looming over their community. The couple fielded questions, encouraging everyone to voice their fears and experiences, knowing that sharing their stories was a crucial step in combating the pervasive darkness. The atmosphere shifted from uncertainty to determination as the townspeople banded together to formulate a plan. Ideas flowed, and a sense of solidarity filled the room. A committee was formed, with Anna and Ben at its helm, dedicated to investigating the hotel's history, uncovering the truth behind its hauntings, and spreading the word to prevent any further tragedies. Local historians volunteered their time, eager to dig into archives and uncover long-buried secrets. A grassroots campaign emerged, utilizing social media to raise awareness and share the dangers associated with the Nowhere Hotel. As the weeks passed, their efforts began to bear fruit. The community came alive with discussions about the hotel. Conversations previously whispered in hushed tones became part of the daily discourse. They organized events, such as community walks near the hotel, where residents would come together to reclaim their space and confront the shadows that had taken root in their lives. Anna and Ben led the charge, ensuring that everyone felt empowered to participate in this collective effort. However, amid the excitement and newfound camaraderie, Anna couldn't shake the feeling of foreboding that lingered at the back of her mind. She had witnessed firsthand the hotel's power, and she knew that merely talking about it wouldn't be enough to exorcise its hold over the community. It was as if the shadows were watching, waiting for a moment of weakness to strike back. Ben sensed her unease, often catching her gaze drifting toward the hill where the hotel had once stood, now reduced to rubble, but still haunting their thoughts. One evening, as they sat together in their living room, Anna confided in Ben about her fears. What if the hotel isn't finished with us? What if it retaliates against our efforts? She could feel the anxiety swirling within her, echoing the trepidation she had felt while they were still trapped inside its walls. Ben placed a reassuring hand on hers, his expression thoughtful. "We've taken a stand. We're shining a light on the darkness. We won't let it take control again." Despite Ben's words, Anna couldn't shake the feeling that their fight had only just begun. One night, as she lay in bed, she was jolted awake by a faint whispering sound, reminiscent of the voices she had heard while inside the hotel. Heart racing, she sat up, scanning the dimly lit room for any sign of an intruder. But there was nothing, only the stillness of the night and the heavy weight of her own thoughts. Could it be the echoes of the forgotten guests reaching out to her, urging her to continue their fight? Or was it simply her mind playing tricks on her after all they had endured? As the days turned into weeks, the community continued to unite in their efforts, and yet Anna felt a nagging sense of dread growing in her heart. With each passing day, they became more aware of the scars left by the Nowhere Hotel. A town that once had turned a blind eye was now faced with the reality of their shared history, forcing them to confront the past they had long avoided. But even as they moved forward, shadows lurked just beyond their reach, reminding them that the darkness they had escaped was never too far behind. It became clear that their battle was not just about exposing the truth. It was about protecting their community from the memories that still haunted them. Anna and Ben resolved to keep the spirit of the forgotten guests alive, their mission transforming into one of healing and remembrance. They began to host gatherings, inviting townspeople to share their stories and honor those who had been lost. This collective act of remembrance served as both a tribute to the fallen and a testament to their resilience as a community. As they looked around at the faces of their neighbors, Anna felt a sense of hope blossom within her. Together, they were forging a new narrative, one that acknowledged the past while embracing a brighter future. They were no longer just survivors of the Nowhere Hotel. They were warriors against its darkness, defenders of their community. And with every story shared and every soul remembered, they reclaimed their power, standing united against the shadows that dared to encroach upon their lives once more. The momentum built by Anna and Ben's efforts began to ripple beyond the confines of their small town, drawing the attention of nearby communities. News outlets picked up on the resurgence of interest in the Nowhere Hotel, framing it as a modern horror story that had transcended mere folklore. As reports spread, more individuals came forward, sharing their experiences and encounters with the hotel, which seemed to breathe new life into the memories of the lost souls trapped within its walls. The conversations that had once been whispered in fear transformed into a collective understanding that they were not alone in their trauma. With each story shared, the shadows of the past grew clearer, revealing an intricate web of despair that had ensnared many. The town organized a public forum to facilitate these discussions, where Anna and Ben would serve as facilitators, guiding the dialogue to ensure that every voice was heard. They felt a sense of responsibility to honor the stories of those who had suffered, transforming their pain into a powerful collective narrative. The community center was chosen as the venue, the very space that had once been filled with fear now transformed into a sanctuary of shared healing. As the date of the forum approached, Anna felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. Would people feel safe enough to share their experiences? Would the emotional weight of their stories prove too much to bear? The night before the forum, she lay awake, her mind racing with thoughts and doubts. Ben, sensing her unease, held her close, offering quiet reassurances. "Whatever happens tomorrow, we're in this together," he said softly. His words anchored her, providing a glimmer of hope amidst her swirling anxieties. On the day of the forum, the community center was buzzing with energy. Residents streamed in, filling the seats and creating a vibrant tapestry of faces eager to share their experiences. Anna and Ben took their places at the front, surrounded by a panel of local historians and mental health professionals who had joined to support the community. The atmosphere was charged, a mixture of anticipation and trepidation hanging in the air like a tangible entity. As the forum began, Anna introduced the purpose of the gathering, emphasizing the importance of sharing and acknowledging their experiences. "Tonight, we reclaim our narrative," she stated, her voice resonating with conviction. "We turn the pain of the past into a beacon of hope for the future." The audience listened intently, nodding in agreement, their expressions reflecting the weight of what lay ahead. The first to speak was a woman in her late 40s, her hands trembling as she recounted her experience at the Nowhere Hotel 20 years prior. She described how she had checked in seeking adventure, but had instead encountered terror that lingered long after her departure. "I felt watched," she recalled, her voice breaking. "I thought I was going crazy, but I could hear whispers in the dark. I had to leave in the middle of the night." As she spoke, tears glistened in her eyes, and the room held its breath, the shared empathy creating an unbreakable bond among the attendees. One by one, others began to share their stories. A man who had lost his brother during a fateful visit, a couple who had emerged from the hotel changed, their laughter replaced with an eerie silence. Each story was met with nods of understanding and murmurs of support, weaving together a tapestry of shared trauma that resonated deeply within the community. Anna felt a swell of emotion as she listened. The weight of their experiences united them in ways they had never anticipated. As the forum continued, the emotional energy in the room shifted. With each story, the shared understanding seemed to dissolve the barriers that had kept them isolated. Conversations sparked among attendees, questions about their experiences leading to discussions about how they could confront the shadows that haunted them. The panelists offered resources for coping strategies and pathways to healing, transforming the forum into a powerful catalyst for change. However, even as they shared their stories, a palpable tension lingered in the air. Anna sensed that the shadows of the hotel had not fully dissipated, and she remained acutely aware that the darkness they faced was not only an external force, but also an internal struggle. People were confronting not only the hotel's horrors, but also the lingering effects of trauma that had settled within them. As Anna moved to the front of the room once more, she felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on her. "We can't just share our pain and walk away," Anna urged, her voice resonating through the room. "We need to find ways to reclaim our power and support one another as we heal." Inspired by her words, members of the audience began to brainstorm ways to move forward as a community. Ideas flowed freely. Support groups, healing circles, community projects focused on remembrance and outreach to those who had yet to share their experiences. The forum concluded with a sense of renewed purpose. Attendees lingered, discussing ideas and exchanging contact information, forming connections that would support them in their healing journeys. As Anna and Ben stood at the front, they felt an overwhelming sense of accomplishment wash over them. They had not only facilitated a dialogue, but had also ignited a movement within their community, one that transcended the horrors of the Nowhere Hotel. But as the crowd began to disperse, Anna's unease resurfaced. She couldn't shake the feeling that the hotel was still watching, still waiting for its moment to reclaim the narrative. The memories of the forgotten guests echoed in her mind, their silent pleas urging her to continue the fight. "We've started something," she said quietly to Ben as they gathered their belongings. "But I fear the hotel won't let us go that easily." Ben nodded, understanding her fears. "We've come too far to let it win. We will confront it, no matter what it takes." Together, they stepped out into the cool night air, the moon illuminating their path as they moved forward, ready to face whatever darkness lay ahead. The fight against the shadows had only just begun, and as they took each step, they felt the weight of their community's collective strength bolstering them. Anna and Ben were determined to ensure that the darkness of the Nowhere Hotel would never again cast a shadow over their lives or the lives of those around them. With the community forum behind them, Anna and Ben found themselves invigorated, yet acutely aware of the task ahead. The gathering had not only opened the floodgates of shared experiences, but had also laid bare the emotional scars left by the Nowhere Hotel. As the couple walked home under the dim light of the street lamps, they shared their thoughts on the evening's revelations. Each story had left an indelible mark, reminding them of the unresolved pain that lingered beneath the surface. It was clear that the healing process would require more than just conversations. It would demand action, reflection, and, ultimately, a confrontation with the hotel's haunting legacy. Determined to take their efforts a step further, Anna and Ben decided to embark on a journey to uncover the hotel's history in greater detail. They reached out to the local historians who had contributed to the forum, eager to dig deeper into the hotel's past. Over coffee at a quaint cafe, they began discussing the various accounts of disappearances, strange phenomena, and the hotel's original owner, a reclusive figure whose presence seemed to loom large over the narratives. As the historians shared their research, a pattern began to emerge, revealing a tapestry woven with threads of tragedy, deceit, and loss. The couple learned that the Nowhere Hotel had once been a bustling establishment, drawing in visitors from far and wide. However, its allure had waned after a series of unexplained incidents, each more sinister than the last. Tales of ghostly apparitions, guests vanishing in the night, and even whispers of a dark ritual conducted in the depths of the hotel's basement were passed down through generations. It became clear that the hotel's legacy was not merely a series of unfortunate events. It was a story steeped in darkness that had claimed many lives. Anna felt a chill run down her spine as she processed the weight of this knowledge. To further their investigation, Anna and Ben decided to visit the site where the hotel once stood. Though it had been demolished, the land remained a palpable reminder of the horrors that had unfolded. As they arrived, the sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows over the overgrown grass. The air felt heavy, laden with memories that seemed to cling to the remnants of the foundation. They could almost hear the echoes of laughter and despair that had once filled the space, a haunting contrast to the eerie silence that now surrounded them. With cameras in hand, they began documenting the site, capturing the essence of what remained. Anna felt a mixture of trepidation and determination as they walked through the area, the ground crunching beneath their feet. She sensed an energy lingering in the air, an unseen force that seemed to urge them to uncover the truth. It was as if the spirits of the forgotten guests were guiding them, pushing them to delve deeper into the mysteries that lay hidden within the shadows. As they explored, they stumbled upon a small, dilapidated shed tucked away in the corner of the property. The structure appeared neglected, yet it held an air of significance that drew them closer. They exchanged glances, curiosity piqued. With a shared nod, they approached the shed, heartbeats quickening in anticipation. Inside, they discovered an array of old furniture, dusty memorabilia, and what appeared to be remnants of the hotel's past. Among the forgotten artifacts was a journal, its pages yellowed with age, hidden beneath a tattered blanket. Anna's hands trembled as she opened the journal, her eyes scanning the faded ink. It belonged to the hotel's original owner, a man named Frederick Wainwright, who had built the establishment with dreams of grandeur. As she read, a chilling narrative unfolded, detailing Wainwright's descent into madness as he became increasingly obsessed with the supernatural. The entries hinted at dark rituals performed in the hotel's basement, practices meant to bind the spirits of the departed to the hotel, ensuring their loyalty as guests while feeding off their energies. The gravity of this revelation sent shivers down Anna's spine, solidifying her belief that the hotel had not merely trapped souls, it had devoured them. Ben peered over Anna's shoulder, his eyes widening as he processed the implications of Wainwright's words. "This is it," he murmured, realization dawning upon him. "This is the key to understanding everything." They carefully documented the journal. Knowing that this artifact could shed light on the dark legacy they were determined to confront. As they continued to read, they found passages describing Wainwright's increasing paranoia, detailing his belief that the spirits he had tried to control were fighting back against him. It was a gripping account of a man who had become ensnared in the very darkness he had sought to harness. The more they read, the more Anna and Ben recognized the parallels between Wainwright's experiences and their own. The hotel had not just been a structure. It was a living entity, fueled by the emotions of those who entered its doors. With each new visitor, it had grown stronger, feeding off their fears and sorrow. Anna's heart raced as she realized the hotel's power lay in its ability to manipulate those who came seeking solace or adventure. The hotel was not merely haunted. It was a predator, luring in unsuspecting prey and trapping them within its grasp. Fueled by a newfound sense of urgency, they made their way back to town, determined to share their findings with the community. The journal held the key to understanding the darkness that had plagued them, and Anna felt a growing sense of responsibility to ensure that the truths they uncovered would not only serve as a warning, but also as a means to reclaim their community from the grip of the past. They arranged a follow-up meeting, eager to share the revelations that could empower their neighbors to confront the lingering shadows. As they prepared for the meeting, Anna and Ben reflected on the weight of their discoveries. They had unearthed not only a history of tragedy, but also a blueprint for healing. By understanding the origins of the darkness, they could arm themselves with knowledge and resilience. The path ahead would not be easy, but they were ready to rally their community once more, this time with the clarity of purpose that came from understanding the forces at play. As the night of the meeting approached, a sense of anticipation filled the air. The couple understood that they were not just sharing stories anymore. They were revealing the very foundation of the hotel's dark legacy. Their determination to confront the shadows felt stronger than ever, and they were prepared to lead their community toward a brighter future, one where the echoes of the past could finally be silenced. The night of the follow-up meeting arrived, casting a veil of anticipation over the town. Anna and Ben stood at the entrance of the community center, where the air buzzed with energy. Word of their discoveries had spread like wildfire, igniting curiosity and eagerness among the townsfolk. This time, however, There was a palpable sense of empowerment in the air, as if the community had collectively decided to face the darkness that had haunted them for too long. People mingled in small groups, discussing their own experiences, and the atmosphere felt markedly different from the first forum. This was a gathering rooted in resilience rather than fear. As attendees filled the seats, Anna and Ben took their place at the front, flanked by local historians and mental health professionals who had become allies in their journey. Anna took a deep breath, her heart racing with excitement and nerves. This was more than just a presentation. It was a culmination of their efforts to understand the Nowhere Hotel's legacy. With each passing moment, the weight of their responsibility loomed larger, but so did the hope for healing that lay ahead. "Thank you all for being here tonight," Anna began, her voice steady as she addressed the crowd. "What we have uncovered is not just a history of horror, but also a narrative that has the power to transform our understanding of the past and guide us into a brighter future." The audience leaned forward, captivated by her words, and Anna could feel the collective energy surging in the room. She shared the story of Frederick Wainwright and the dark rituals he had conducted, weaving a tapestry of their findings that highlighted the hotel's insatiable hunger for despair. Ben followed, discussing the emotional toll that the hotel had taken on the community. "It's crucial that we acknowledge the pain we've experienced, but we must also understand that we have the power to reclaim our narrative," he said, his voice filled with conviction. He emphasized the importance of recognizing that while the hotel had fed off their fears, they were not defined by those experiences. The audience responded with nods of agreement, the tension in the room shifting from apprehension to determination. As Anna and Ben shared the journal's contents, gasps and murmurs rippled through the crowd. They could see the realization dawning on people, the understanding that they were not merely victims of circumstance, but participants in a larger story. "We are more than just the shadows of the past," Anna declared, her voice rising in intensity. "We are the architects of our future. We can choose to stand together, to break the cycle of fear that has held us captive for so long." The room erupted into applause, a chorus of agreement that resonated with hope. The discussion evolved, transforming into an open forum where attendees shared their thoughts on the revelations. One man stood up, his voice trembling as he spoke of his fear of the hotel's power over his family. "I've felt its weight for years," he admitted, tears glistening in his eyes. "But hearing this, I realize we can fight back. We can take back our story." His words struck a chord, echoing the sentiments of many who had felt the oppressive grip of the hotel for far too long. Encouraged by the sharing of experiences, Anna suggested a community project aimed at reclaiming the space where the hotel had stood. "What if we transform this area into a memorial garden?" she proposed. "A place where we can honor those lost and create a symbol of our collective strength?" The room buzzed with excitement, and hands shot up as people voiced their support. Ideas flowed freely, benches adorned with plaques, a community mural depicting the history, and events to celebrate resilience and remembrance. The conversation soon turned toward healing methods and support systems. A local mental health professional suggested forming support groups to help those affected by their experiences at the hotel. "We need to create safe spaces where we can continue to share and heal together," she urged. The audience responded enthusiastically, eager to embrace the idea of communal healing. Anna felt a swell of pride as she watched the community come alive with possibilities. As the meeting drew to a close, the atmosphere was charged with a sense of purpose. Anna and Ben had ignited a fire within their community, transforming the narrative of fear into one of hope and resilience. "Tonight, we have taken the first steps toward reclaiming our past," Ben concluded. "But this is only the beginning. We must continue to stand together, to face the darkness, and to forge a new path forward." The crowd erupted in applause, a wave of unity washing over them, and Anna felt a renewed sense of determination coursing through her veins. As people began to leave, Anna and Ben lingered, their hearts brimming with optimism. The shadows of the Nowhere Hotel had not vanished, but they had taken on a different form, one that no longer held power over them. Instead, The community had transformed their fear into a powerful collective resolve. They would face the darkness, not as victims, but as a united front ready to reclaim their narrative and heal together. In the following weeks, the energy from the meeting continued to build momentum. The community came together to organize workdays for the memorial garden, each person contributing in their own way. Some brought plants and flowers, while others offered tools and labor. The project became a beacon of hope, a testament to their strength in the face of adversity. Anna and Ben found themselves overwhelmed with gratitude as they witnessed the transformation of not just the physical space, but also the emotional landscape of their community. As the garden began to take shape, they felt a shift in the atmosphere surrounding the site where the hotel once stood. The darkness that had long haunted the area began to recede, replaced by laughter, conversation, and the shared commitment to healing. Each planting became an act of defiance against the shadows that had once held them captive. Anna knew that they were reclaiming not just the land, but also their power, rewriting the narrative of the Nowhere Hotel from one of despair to one of hope. However, in the quiet moments, Anna felt a lingering unease. While the community was healing, she couldn't shake the feeling that the hotel still held secrets yet to be revealed. Deep down, she sensed that the battle was far from over. But she also understood that they were no longer alone in this fight. With the strength of their community behind them, Anna and Ben felt ready to confront whatever darkness lay ahead, determined to uncover the truth and transform their past into a foundation for a brighter future. As the memorial garden took shape, the townspeople continued to bond over their shared commitment to healing and remembrance. Each weekend, a steady stream of volunteers arrived, bringing their families and friends to participate in the transformation of the once forbidding site. The garden blossomed under their care, each plant symbolizing not only the lives lost to the Nowhere Hotel, but also the resilience of those who remained. Bright flowers began to burst forth amidst the verdant foliage, creating a vibrant tapestry of color where darkness had once reigned. However, amid the burgeoning hope, Anna's unease persisted. Although the garden was a testament to their unity, she couldn't shake the feeling that the shadows still lingered in the corners of their lives, silently observing their efforts. She often found herself haunted by the words she had read in Frederick Wainwright's journal, the chilling accounts of his descent into madness and the dark rituals he performed. The unsettling thought that the hotel's spirit could still be at work gnawed at her, prompting her to delve deeper into her own feelings of dread. One evening, while sitting on the porch with Ben, Anna decided to voice her concerns. "I feel like we're moving forward, but there's a part of me that thinks we're not done yet," she confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. "The hotel had a grip on this place for so long, and I can't help but wonder if it's still watching us." Ben nodded thoughtfully, understanding the weight of her words. "You might be right," he replied, "but I think that acknowledging our fears is the first step toward confronting them. We need to explore that darkness together." Motivated by their mutual resolve, Anna and Ben began planning a night of exploration at the site of the hotel's former location. They intended to gather a small group of their closest allies from the community, those who had shown courage in sharing their stories and who were eager to confront the shadows that had haunted them. They decided to hold a gathering in the garden, lit by the soft glow of candles and the moonlight filtering through the trees. The evening would serve as both a vigil for the lost souls and a commitment to face the past head-on. As word spread about the planned gathering, excitement mingled with trepidation among the community members. Some were apprehensive, recalling the fear and sorrow associated with the hotel, while others embraced the opportunity to confront the darkness collectively. Anna and Ben felt a sense of responsibility to create an atmosphere of safety and support, where everyone could express their feelings and fears openly. They arranged for local historians and mental health professionals to attend, ensuring that those who needed guidance would have access to it. On the night of the gathering, the garden was beautifully illuminated by flickering candles, casting warm shadows that danced among the flowers. As the participants arrived, Anna and Ben welcomed them with open arms, creating an atmosphere of camaraderie and shared purpose. The soft sounds of nature enveloped them, creating a cocoon of comfort in which they could openly discuss their feelings. They formed a circle around a central fire pit, where the flickering flames symbolized both the warmth of their community and the flickering remnants of the past. As the evening progressed, people began sharing their thoughts, feelings, and fears about the hotel. Anna felt a deep sense of connection with her neighbors as they spoke. One woman shared how she had hesitated to return to the area after experiencing a ghostly presence during her last visit to the hotel. "I felt something pull me back," she admitted, her voice trembling. "It's like it wanted me to stay." Others chimed in, recounting similar experiences of being drawn to the hotel even as they feared what lay within its walls. With each shared story, the fire crackled and popped, resonating with the emotions swirling around them. Ben took a moment to reflect on the tales, pointing out that while the hotel had been a source of fear, it had also forged connections among them. "We are here tonight because of the darkness that has lingered over us," he said, looking around the circle. "But we are not defined by those experiences. We have the power to reclaim our narrative." The crowd nodded, a palpable energy rising as they absorbed his words. As the discussions continued, Anna felt a strange shift in the atmosphere. The wind picked up, rustling the leaves overhead, and she sensed an electric charge in the air. "I think we need to perform a cleansing ritual," she suggested, recalling her readings about similar practices meant to release negative energy. She explained how such rituals often involved invoking positive energies to counteract darkness. The group agreed, and they quickly gathered materials, herbs, candles, and small offerings to honor the spirits that had been trapped. As they prepared for the ritual, Anna felt a mixture of excitement and apprehension. This was a significant step, a way to confront the shadows that had haunted them for too long. They formed a smaller circle within the larger one, holding hands and focusing their energies on the task at hand. With the fire crackling beside them, Anna led the group in a meditative chant, encouraging everyone to visualize the darkness being released from the land and replaced with light and healing. As they chanted, the atmosphere shifted again. The wind swirled around them, carrying the scent of the herbs they had gathered. Suddenly, a rustling sound emanated from the nearby trees, causing the participants to pause mid-chant. A hush fell over the group, and Anna felt her heart race. "It's okay," she said softly, sensing the group's unease. "We're together, and we're reclaiming our space." With renewed focus, they resumed the chant, their voices rising in unity. The fire blazed higher, casting flickering shadows that danced around them. Anna felt a wave of energy wash over her, filling her with warmth and determination. As the chant reached its climax, she closed her eyes and envisioned the darkness receding, the hotel's lingering presence finally releasing its grip on their lives. In that moment, she felt a powerful surge of energy coursing through the group. The air crackled, and for a brief second, she sensed a presence surrounding them, not of darkness but of light. It was as if the spirits they had come to honor were acknowledging their efforts, guiding them toward healing and release. Tears filled Anna's eyes as she realized that they had finally taken a significant step in confronting the past, turning the page on a chapter that had long held them captive. As the ritual concluded, the group stood in silence, absorbing the energy of the moment. They had faced their fears, united against the shadows that had haunted them for too long. Anna looked around the circle, seeing the relief and hope reflected in the faces of her neighbors. "We have the strength to move forward," she said softly, her voice steady with conviction. "Together, we can reshape our narrative and heal the wounds of the past." With the fire slowly dying down, the participants began to share their feelings, discussing the cathartic release they had experienced during the ritual. The fear that had once permeated their lives was now being replaced with a sense of community and belonging. They began brainstorming ways to continue the healing process, generating ideas for future gatherings, support groups, and outreach initiatives. As they prepared to leave, Anna and Ben stood together, holding hands and taking in the scene around them. They knew the journey was far from over, but for the first time, they felt a profound sense of hope. The echoes of the past would always be a part of them, But now they had the tools and the community to confront whatever darkness lay ahead. United, they would continue to forge a path toward healing, transforming their shared experiences into a legacy of resilience. As the weeks rolled into months, the community's connection deepened, and the memorial garden blossomed into a vibrant oasis of healing. Each gathering drew more participants, and discussions evolved into plans for various community initiatives. The garden became a space not just for remembrance, but also for celebration. It was a hub for shared stories, laughter, and newfound friendships. However, amidst this burgeoning hope, Anna couldn't shake the feeling that something deeper lingered beneath the surface. The unsettling truth about the Nowhere Hotel continued to gnaw at her, urging her to dig further into the shadows of its history. During one of their weekly meetings, Anna raised her concerns. "I feel like we've made great strides, but there's still so much we don't know about the hotel and the people who were affected by it," she admitted, looking around at the familiar faces that had become her support system. "What if we're missing something crucial?" Ben nodded in agreement, his expression thoughtful. "We should gather more stories, not just from our community, but from the larger region. The hotel's influence may have reached further than we realize." With a shared sense of purpose, Anna and Ben decided to organize a broader oral history project. They invited volunteers from nearby towns, reaching out to historians, local folklore enthusiasts, and anyone who had encountered the Nowhere Hotel or its legacy. The response was overwhelmingly positive, and soon they had a team dedicated to collecting stories, documenting experiences, and uncovering the layers of history that surrounded the infamous establishment. Each voice added another thread to the intricate tapestry of their shared past, revealing not only pain, but also resilience and strength. As the project progressed, Anna found herself increasingly engrossed in the research. She spent hours poring over old newspapers, public records, and personal journals. Each discovery felt like peeling back another layer of the hotel's haunting legacy. She uncovered reports of mysterious disappearances, strange phenomena, and the eerie atmosphere that had surrounded the hotel long before its closure. The more she learned, the more she realized how deeply the hotel's impact had rippled through time, affecting not just individual lives, but the entire community. One evening, while combing through the archives of the local library, Anna stumbled upon a particularly chilling article from decades prior. It detailed an unexplained event, a gathering of townsfolk who had disappeared after attending an event at the hotel. The article recounted how those who had attended reported feelings of dread and an overwhelming urge to leave. "This is it," she whispered to herself, realizing that she had uncovered a vital piece of the puzzle. The article raised numerous questions. What had happened to those individuals? Were they lost to the darkness that had surrounded the hotel, or had they become part of its sinister legend? Excited by her findings, Anna rushed to share the information with Ben and their team. The discussion that ensued was electrifying, as each member contributed theories and speculations about the event. "We need to find out more about this gathering," Ben suggested, his eyes alight with curiosity. "If we can uncover what happened, we might be able to shed light on the hotel's hold over the community." With renewed energy, the team focused their efforts on locating descendants of the missing townsfolk. They organized community meetings to share their findings and encouraged anyone with knowledge of the event to come forward. Slowly, pieces began to fall into place. Some individuals had stories passed down through generations, tales of loved ones who had returned changed, haunted by memories they couldn't explain. Others spoke of persistent whispers in the night, echoes of those who had been lost. The stories began to paint a more complex picture of the Nowhere Hotel. It wasn't merely a place of horror. It was a site where lives intertwined, where tragedy and resilience coexisted. The community's history was richer than they had initially believed, filled with moments of bravery and perseverance. Anna felt a growing sense of urgency to compile the narratives, to create a book that would serve as both a historical account and a testament to the community's strength. As the project neared completion, Anna and Ben decided to host a public event to unveil their findings. They envisioned an evening of storytelling, where community members could come together to share their experiences, celebrate their collective journey, and honor those who had been lost. The idea resonated deeply within the community, and excitement began to build as the date approached. On the night of the event, the atmosphere buzzed with anticipation. The memorial garden was adorned with twinkling lights, and the central fire pit crackled invitingly. People gathered, forming a circle to share their stories. Anna felt a rush of emotion as she looked around, seeing faces filled with hope and determination. This was a celebration of their shared resilience, a moment where they could honor the past while looking toward the future. As the night unfolded, Anna took the stage to share the history she had uncovered. She spoke passionately about the hotel's legacy, weaving together tales of loss, fear, and ultimately, triumph. Each story she recounted resonated deeply, evoking tears and laughter from the crowd. "We are not defined by what has happened to us," she declared, her voice strong. "We are defined by how we choose to rise above it." After her speech, the floor opened for others to share their stories. One by one, community members stepped forward, each voice adding depth to the narrative. Some spoke of ancestors lost. Others shared their own encounters with the hotel, and many expressed their gratitude for the healing journey they had embarked upon together. The fire crackled and danced, illuminating the faces of those gathered, creating a cocoon of warmth and solidarity. As the evening drew to a close, Anna felt a profound sense of fulfillment. The stories they had uncovered were not just remnants of the past. They were a roadmap for the future, guiding the community toward healing and unity. Anna realized that they had done more than confront the shadows of the Nowhere Hotel. They had reclaimed their narrative and transformed it into one of hope. In that moment, she understood that the weight of truth was not just a burden but also a gift. It was a chance to acknowledge the past and honor those who had suffered while embracing the strength that lay within their community. As the stars twinkled overhead, Anna felt a deep connection to her neighbors, knowing they had collectively taken a monumental step toward healing, one that would echo through the generations to come. Together, they had woven a new legacy, one that celebrated resilience, hope, and the power of shared stories. With the success of the storytelling event echoing throughout the community, Anna and Ben felt a renewed sense of purpose. The memorial garden had become a sanctuary, a living tribute to both the lost souls and the resilience of the townspeople. Yet, as they basked in the glow of collective healing, Anna could sense an undercurrent of unrest, a lingering unease that hung in the air like an uninvited guest. It became increasingly clear that while they had shed light on the past, the shadows cast by the Nowhere Hotel still loomed large over their lives. One crisp autumn evening, Anna sat in the garden, her mind racing with thoughts of the hotel and its dark legacy. The garden, filled with colorful blooms, was a stark contrast to the memories of despair associated with the hotel. However, she could not shake the feeling that they were merely scratching the surface of a deeper mystery. The Journal of Frederick Wainwright had revealed snippets of dark rituals and the hotel's power over its inhabitants, yet many questions remained unanswered. What had truly happened to the souls who had disappeared? Was there still a connection to the hotel that needed to be severed? Determined to dig deeper, Anna approached Ben with her concerns. "I feel like we've just begun to uncover the truth," she said, her voice tinged with urgency. "What if there are more layers to this story? What if the hotel still holds a power over us, even if we don't recognize it?" Ben looked at her thoughtfully. "I understand your concerns. It's crucial to confront these lingering questions, but we also need to be careful. The past has a way of revealing itself in unexpected ways." With their shared commitment to understanding the hotel's history, Anna and Ben organized a meeting with their research team, inviting everyone to bring any further stories or evidence they had uncovered. They hoped to collaborate on the next steps to ensure that the healing process continued while addressing the shadows that still threatened to engulf them. The team gathered in the garden, the flickering candlelight casting dancing shadows on their faces as they shared their findings. As the meeting unfolded, several individuals recounted their personal encounters with the hotel. One man spoke of a vivid dream where he saw a figure in the hotel's ballroom, dancing alone in a tattered gown. Another woman shared how she had found old photographs of the hotel, revealing hidden details that seemed to shift and change when viewed in different light. Each story added to the growing sense of unease, as they collectively pondered whether the hotel still held sway over their lives, even from its ruins. Encouraged by the group's energy, Anna proposed a bold idea: a return to the hotel site, a physical confrontation with the remnants of the past. "We need to go back, to face whatever is left behind," she declared, her heart pounding with determination. "This time, we'll be equipped with knowledge and strength. We can confront the shadows together." The group buzzed with a mixture of apprehension and excitement, but ultimately, they agreed that confronting the hotel's legacy was necessary for their healing journey. The following week, they organized an expedition to the hotel site, gathering supplies and creating a plan to document their findings. Anna felt a swell of anticipation mixed with trepidation as they approached the remnants of the once grand building. The air grew heavier with each step, and the familiar feeling of dread crept back into her heart. Would the ghosts of the past still linger here? Would they find answers, or would they unearth more questions? As they arrived at the hotel's ruins, Anna felt an overwhelming sense of loss and nostalgia. The skeletal remains of the structure loomed before them, a chilling reminder of the darkness that had enveloped their community for so long. The once grand facade, now cracked and crumbling, was overtaken by nature, with vines and wildflowers reclaiming the land. But there was an energy in the air, an electric hum that sent shivers down her spine. It was as if the hotel itself was watching them, daring them to uncover its secrets. Anna and Ben took the lead, guiding their group through the ruins. They began documenting their surroundings, taking notes and photographs. The atmosphere was thick with tension as they moved through the darkened hallways, their flashlights cutting through the shadows. Strange sounds echoed in the distance, but the group pressed on, driven by the need to confront their fears. With each room they entered, Anna felt the weight of the hotel's history pressing down on them, a heavy shroud of memory and pain. In one of the upstairs rooms, they stumbled upon an old trunk hidden beneath the floorboards. With bated breath, they pried it open, revealing a collection of forgotten mementos, letters, photographs, and even a diary belonging to a former guest. Anna's heart raced as she flipped through the pages of the diary, filled with the thoughts and fears of someone who had experienced the hotel's grip firsthand. The entries chronicled a descent into paranoia, detailing the sense of being watched and the strange occurrences that had plagued the author. As they shared the findings with the group, a hush fell over the room. The words seemed to resonate deeply, echoing the fears that had haunted many of them. "It's as if we're not alone here," Ben remarked quietly, glancing around at the uneasy expressions on their friends' faces. Anna nodded, feeling the weight of the unspoken truth. "We need to acknowledge these experiences," she said firmly. "They're part of our story, and facing them is essential to our healing." Motivated by the discoveries, the group continued their exploration, documenting everything they could. However, as the sun began to set, the atmosphere shifted. A chilling wind swept through the corridors, and the shadows grew darker, deepening the sense of foreboding that enveloped them. They gathered in a large room that once served as the hotel's ballroom, the heart of its former grandeur. Here, Anna decided to lead a cleansing ritual to honor the souls trapped within the hotel and to dispel the lingering darkness. With candles lit around them, they formed a circle and began to chant, invoking protection and healing. Anna's voice quavered slightly as she recited the words, feeling the energy in the room shift with each syllable. As they focused their intentions, Anna felt a sudden coldness wash over her, and a whisper floated through the air, almost indistinguishable from the wind. It sent a shiver down her spine. "What was that?" someone whispered, eyes wide with fear. Anna's heart raced. She wasn't sure if it was just her imagination or if they had stirred something from the depths of the hotel's past. As the chant continued, shadows danced on the walls, and a strange feeling of urgency washed over Anna. She could feel a palpable presence in the room, one that seemed to resonate with their intentions. The air grew thick with emotion, and for a fleeting moment, Anna felt as if the hotel itself was responding, echoing their calls for release. Tears filled her eyes as she envisioned the spirits they were honoring, the lives forever altered by the darkness that had enveloped them. But just as hope surged, a loud crash echoed through the ballroom, shaking the very foundations of the hotel. Panic erupted among the group, and Anna felt a rush of fear flood her senses. "We need to leave," someone shouted, their voice filled with urgency. In that moment, Anna realized that they had ventured into territory they might not fully understand. The shadows that had been quiet for so long were stirring, and the price of their investigation might be more than they were prepared to pay. As they scrambled to escape, Anna turned back for a moment, her heart heavy with the weight of unfulfilled promises. They had come seeking answers, hoping to illuminate the darkness, but it seemed the shadows were not ready to be unveiled. The hotel's legacy was more complex than they had anticipated, entwined in a web of fear and mystery that still held a grip on the town. It was a reminder that some stories were not meant to be easily resolved, and the journey toward healing would be filled with unexpected challenges. With hearts pounding and breaths quickening, the group fled the ballroom, leaving behind the remnants of a past that still held power over them. As they reached the safety of the garden, Anna glanced back at the hotel one last time, feeling a mixture of sorrow and determination. They had ventured into the heart of darkness, and while they had uncovered fragments of the truth, the shadows remained ever present, a testament to the complexity of their shared history. Together, they would continue their journey, facing the weight of truth with courage and resilience, even as the veil of shadows threatened to envelop them once more. In the wake of their harrowing return from the hotel, the community found itself at a crossroads. The expedition had unearthed not only unsettling memories, but also a sense of dread that hung over them like a dense fog. Conversations that once flowed freely in the memorial garden turned somber, and the stories shared were laced with an undercurrent of fear. Anna could sense the unease lingering in the air, weighing heavily on her and her fellow community members. They had delved deep into the shadows, but the darkness had fought back, leaving them questioning whether they had ventured too far. Despite the fear that gripped them, Anna and Ben recognized the need to continue their efforts. The stories they had unearthed, while dark and unsettling, held the power to heal and transform their community. It was crucial to confront the lingering shadows of the Nowhere Hotel, not only for their own peace, but for the generations that would follow. The unresolved threads of their history needed to be woven into a narrative that spoke to resilience and hope rather than fear. With this determination in mind, they organized a community meeting to discuss their next steps. As the meeting commenced, Anna stood before her neighbors, her heart pounding in her chest. "We have faced the past and uncovered stories that challenge us," she began, her voice steady despite the tremor of apprehension coursing through her. "But we cannot let fear define us. Instead, we must use this knowledge to empower ourselves and future generations." Her words resonated with some, while others remained skeptical, haunted by the darkness they had encountered. Ben stepped in to support Anna, echoing her sentiments. "We need to take control of our narrative," he urged. "The hotel's legacy doesn't have to be one of despair. We can transform it into a story of resilience and healing." Gradually, the atmosphere shifted as community members began to voice their thoughts. Some shared their fear of the hotel's lingering influence, while others expressed a desire to reclaim the narrative that had haunted them for too long. It became clear that they were ready to confront their fears head-on, to shine a light on the darkness rather than allow it to fester in silence. Motivated by this newfound resolve, Anna and Ben proposed a series of workshops aimed at fostering creativity and healing through storytelling. They envisioned a safe space where individuals could share their experiences and find catharsis through art, writing, and performance. The idea ignited a spark within the community, leading to an outpouring of enthusiasm and support. Participants began signing up, eager to transform their pain into something beautiful and meaningful. As the workshops commenced, Anna watched as stories began to unfold like blossoms in the garden. Each session was filled with laughter, tears, and healing. Individuals poured their hearts into their work, weaving together the threads of their experiences with creativity and vulnerability. Poetry emerged, reflecting the heartache of loss and the hope for a brighter future. Visual art captured the essence of their struggles, transforming darkness into vibrant colors that spoke to their resilience. During one particularly moving workshop, a young woman named Lila shared her artwork depicting a broken hotel surrounded by flowers. "This represents how we can reclaim our narrative," she explained, tears glistening in her eyes. "Even though the hotel holds memories of pain, we can choose to surround it with beauty and healing." Anna felt a swell of emotion as she realized the profound impact the workshops were having on their community. The stories they had once feared were being transformed into expressions of hope, courage, and resilience. However, even as the community began to heal, Anna couldn't shake the feeling that the shadows of the past were still present, waiting for the right moment to strike. The incidents during their expedition haunted her thoughts, leaving her with an unsettling sense of unease. As the workshops continued, she decided to dedicate time to further research, delving deeper into the hotel's history to understand the true extent of its impact on the community. One afternoon, as she sifted through the archives again, Anna stumbled upon a series of interviews conducted with former guests and employees of the hotel. The accounts were chilling, detailing strange occurrences that aligned with their own experiences. The stories mirrored the sensations of being watched, the feeling of dread that seeped into the very walls of the establishment. Anna's heart raced as she read about the supernatural claims that had once circulated through the town, tales of apparitions and whispers that echoed in the dark corners of the hotel. Determined to bring this information to light, Anna organized another community meeting to share her findings. As she stood before her neighbors, a sense of urgency propelled her forward. "We cannot ignore the patterns that emerge from these accounts," she urged, her voice firm. "We must understand what we're up against if we are to break the hold the hotel has on our community." The group nodded, their expressions reflecting a mixture of fear and determination. Anna proposed a collaborative effort to create a documentary that would chronicle their journey, both the healing they had experienced and the shadows they still faced. The project would involve interviews with community members, incorporating their stories, artwork, and the historical context surrounding the Nowhere Hotel. "By sharing our truth, we can illuminate the darkness that has lingered for too long," she declared, a fierce determination in her eyes. Excited by the prospect of telling their story through film, the community rallied behind Anna's vision. They began planning interviews, gathering footage of the memorial garden, and brainstorming how to weave their narratives into a cohesive and powerful documentary. The process became a unifying experience as they collaborated to bring their stories to life on screen. As filming progressed, Anna found herself reflecting on the significance of their collective journey. The shadows that had once threatened to consume them were slowly being transformed into a narrative of strength and resilience. Each story shared on camera held the potential to heal, not just for their community, but for others who had faced similar struggles. The power of their truth became an anchor in their healing process, allowing them to reclaim their narrative and transform it into something beautiful and powerful. But just as they began to gain momentum, Anna couldn't shake the feeling that the echoes of the past were not finished with them yet. During a night of filming at the hotel site, strange occurrences began to surface. Equipment malfunctioned, eerie sounds echoed through the darkness, and the atmosphere grew heavy with tension. The shadows seemed to dance around them, testing their resolve, challenging them to confront the very darkness they sought to illuminate. As Anna stood among her friends, she felt the weight of their collective journey bearing down on her. This was more than just a story. It was a testament to their resilience in the face of overwhelming odds. The shadows were still there, but so were the stories of hope and healing. Together, they would navigate the echoes of the past, ready to confront whatever darkness awaited them, armed with their truth and the strength of their community. The journey ahead would not be easy, but it was a path they were willing to walk together, ready to reclaim their narrative and transform the haunting legacy of the Nowhere Hotel into a beacon of light. As the community moved forward with their documentary project, a palpable sense of hope began to fill the air. The shared purpose of confronting the darkness of the Nowhere Hotel and reclaiming their narrative fueled a collective spirit of resilience. However, Anna still felt the shadows lurking, a haunting reminder of the hotel's legacy that persisted even amidst their efforts to heal. The night they filmed at the hotel site remained etched in her mind, and the strange occurrences had not been forgotten. Yet, it was this very tension that underscored their work, reminding them of the importance of acknowledging both the light and the dark in their stories. On the day of their final shoot, the atmosphere in the Memorial Garden was electric. Community members gathered, eager to participate in what they viewed as a pivotal moment in their healing journey. Anna felt a mixture of excitement and apprehension as she set up the cameras, surrounded by friends who had become like family through their shared experiences. They had transformed the garden into a vibrant backdrop for their film, decorated with flowers and art created during the workshops. Each piece of art resonated with the themes of healing and hope, serving as a reminder of how far they had come. As the sun dipped low on the horizon, casting a warm glow over the garden, Anna gathered the group for one last sharing circle. This would be the emotional climax of their documentary, a space where each person could express their thoughts, feelings, and hopes for the future. Today is about honoring our journey, she began, her voice steady yet filled with emotion. We've faced fears, unearthed painful truths, and celebrated our resilience. This circle is a testament to our strength, and it will be part of the story we tell. One by one, community members spoke up, sharing their experiences and reflecting on how the project had changed them. A young man named Oliver spoke about how the hotel had once felt like a ghostly presence in his life, casting a shadow over his childhood memories. But now, he said, I feel like I can finally confront that darkness. This project has given me the courage to reclaim my story and move forward. His words resonated deeply, prompting nods of understanding from others in the circle. As the sharing continued, Anna listened intently, her heart swelling with pride and gratitude. They had turned their pain into art and their fears into a powerful narrative. The garden, once a place of quiet mourning, had transformed into a vibrant space filled with life and creativity. The stories shared reflected not only their struggles, but also their triumphs, weaving a rich tapestry of resilience that would carry forward into their lives. Each voice contributed a thread to the larger narrative, reinforcing the idea that they were not alone in their journeys. As dusk settled in, Anna sensed a shift in the atmosphere. The shadows began to stretch longer, creeping into the edges of their gathering. An unsettling chill swept through the garden, making the hair on the back of her neck stand on end. Is it just me, or does anyone else feel that? She asked, her voice tinged with concern. The group exchanged uneasy glances, and a few murmurs of agreement rippled through the circle. It seemed that even in their moment of triumph, the specter of the hotel was not far behind. Determined not to let fear take hold, Anna pressed on. We've faced darkness before, and we've come out stronger, she reminded them. This is our moment to shine, to demonstrate that we are more than the shadows that linger. With renewed resolve, they resumed the circle, but Anna couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The unease settled like a weight on her chest, but she fought to keep her composure for the sake of her friends. As the evening continued, they filmed heartfelt testimonies that captured the essence of their transformation. Anna felt a sense of closure beginning to wash over her. Their stories were no longer just personal. They had become a collective testament to resilience. Each voice, each shared experience, was a building block toward a brighter future. The healing journey was incomplete, but they were learning to navigate the complexities of their past, integrating it into a new narrative of hope. After the circle concluded, Anna gathered everyone for one last scene under the moonlit sky. They stood together, hand in hand, creating a human chain of solidarity. The camera captured their silhouettes against the backdrop of the garden, illuminated by soft lights that twinkled like stars. Together, "We are stronger," Anna declared, her voice filled with conviction. This is not just a story of darkness. It is a story of rebirth and resilience. We will carry this light forward, not only for ourselves but for those who come after us. As the final take wrapped, Anna felt a surge of relief and elation. They had done it. They had captured their collective journey, illuminating the darkness while celebrating their strength. The film would serve as both a testament to their struggles and a beacon of hope for others grappling with their own shadows. But just as they began to celebrate, an eerie hush fell over the garden, and the air grew thick with tension. Suddenly, the shadows around them shifted, and a whisper echoed through the night, chilling Anna to the bone. It was the same unsettling feeling she had experienced during their expedition to the hotel. Panic surged through the group, but Anna raised her hand, urging them to stay calm. "Remember our strength," she called out, attempting to keep fear at bay. "We are not defined by this darkness. We are united in our journey." But the whispers grew louder, swirling around them like a tempest. The feeling of being watched intensified, as if the hotel itself were rising to challenge their defiance. As shadows danced along the edges of the garden, Anna felt a surge of determination. "This is our moment to reclaim our power," she shouted, grounding herself in the strength of their shared experiences. "We will not be silenced." In that moment of unity, a remarkable thing happened. The whispers faded, and the oppressive weight of fear began to lift. The shadows that had once felt threatening transformed into something more ethereal, as if they were dissolving in the face of their collective courage. Anna could see the expressions of her friends, resolute and unwavering. Together, they were rewriting their story, one that acknowledged the darkness but chose to embrace the light. As the night wore on, the energy shifted, and the garden felt alive with possibility. The shadows that had loomed over them were now tempered by the brilliance of their newfound resolve. Anna's heart swelled with pride as she looked around at her friends, knowing that they had forged a new path together. The darkness of the Nowhere Hotel would no longer dictate their story. Instead, they would emerge from the shadows into a dawn of renewal. In the days that followed, the community completed their documentary, a powerful narrative that reflected their journey through darkness into light. The premiere was a triumphant celebration, with neighbors gathering to watch their stories unfold on screen. Tears flowed freely, laughter erupted, and the collective energy of hope filled the room. Anna realized that they had transformed not only their own lives, but also the legacy of the hotel itself. As the credits rolled, Anna felt an overwhelming sense of closure. The journey had not been easy, but the resilience of her community had proven stronger than the shadows they had faced. They had embraced their past, shared their truth, and emerged as a beacon of hope for others. The Nowhere Hotel would forever be a part of their history, but it would no longer hold them captive. In the weeks that followed, the community continued to grow stronger, inspired by their shared journey. They established regular gatherings in the Memorial Garden, a space dedicated to storytelling and healing. Anna felt a renewed sense of purpose, knowing that they had transformed their pain into a legacy of hope. The stories shared would echo through the generations, reminding everyone that even in the darkest of times, there is always a path to renewal. As the sun set on the Memorial Garden, Anna stood quietly, reflecting on their journey. The shadows that once felt suffocating had now been illuminated by the light of their collective strength. Together, they had woven a narrative that celebrated resilience and hope, a testament to the enduring spirit of community. And as she looked towards the future, she knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, united by the power of their stories and the unwavering bond they had forged in the face of darkness.